All right, I'll call this meeting to order for the Corporation of Township of Footsonge, October 28th, 2020 capital budget meeting. And I will start with roll call. Councillor Sakoulis.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Balmer.
Present.
And Councillor Goyda.
Present.
All right, we will start our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. And can I get Ms. Hoyt Fox to read the confirmation of the agenda, please?
The council approves the October 28th, 2021 capital budget agenda as circulated.
Are you a mover for that, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Balmer, seconded by Councillor Sakoulis. Any questions or comments before we vote? No, all in favor, Councillor Sakoulis,
In favor.
Councillor Bailey,
In favor.
Councillor Balmer,
Favor.
and Councillor Goyda.
In favor.
All right, do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest today?
No.
None, no. All right, we'll get into this. Hopefully, I think this will go relatively smooth. So as discussed prior to Glenn's connection, just gonna keep it very linear. We'll put things in, then Ms. Hassan will report back at the November, I think she said 25th meeting with more solid numbers. So the first one is report 2020-037-2021. And it talks about the gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve, the NCEA money. So I'll start with the gravel roads discretionary reserve. We created this last budget process, and I may be misunderstood, but the intent was to do a base budget increase each year until eventually we had annually enough money going in that every couple of years we could pave a road. That was kind of direction from council. We want to create a road paving program. Councilor Sakoulis.
Our staff has put together an agenda with Mary Hassan talking pages 3 to 14, and then further on the CEO as well. Why don't we listen to them first, and then we can pop into all these other questions.
Well, all right. If that's the, I wanted to deal with this first and then go to Mary because these, but that's fine. That's the direction you want to go. Ms. Hassan, you want to discuss? I guess you started at 6.11.
Okay, so I'll just give a quick overview of the report. As Mayor Seely's indicated, the budget is a reiterative process, and it will continue to be updated as we move through this process based on council's direction, based on any new information that we receive, with the hope that it would be approved in January or February of 2021, similar to previous years. So I'll just quickly provide an overview of the report. It's a very similar format to previous years. Similar to previous years, council will receive the 2020 completed capital projects and the balances in discretionary and restricted reserves over the forecast period prior to budget being approved. So when I'm talking about the forecast period, I'm speaking specifically to the 2021 to 2030 forecast period to just assist us with the planning processes and to ensure that our asset management discretionary reserve has a sustainable balance in accordance with the recommendations that came out of the asset management plan. So just let council know that the senior leadership team, we worked collaboratively to develop the budget model, and we have completed capital budget sheets for 2021 projects, which are incorporated in this report, and department heads will provide an overview of the 2021 capital projects as we move forward today. So as Mayor Mayor Sealy has indicated, the current tax levy impact, it's going to be updated as we move through this process and based on council's direction today. So I'm not going to dwell too deep into this. So I'm on page 5 of the report, and it indicates, sorry, page 5 of 103 of the PDF, and summarizes which projects in the capital budget as currently presented are tax levy funded. The next section discusses the gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve. And so if we could incorporate council's direction in our meeting minutes as to how much we want to allocate into this reserve for this budget year and over the forecast period, it would be very helpful for staff. The current budget as presented doesn't include a contribution, but it can be updated with future budgets, and I can provide council with the updated amounts based on council's direction. Page 6 of 103 discusses the municipal class environmental assessment, municipal water and wastewater. This was a project that we had incorporated in the capital budget in 2018, and it was contingent on receiving third-party funding. So we had raised $87,500 in tax levy funding in 2018. So this currently is a capital carry forward project that you'll see in the 2018 capital carry forward schedule that's attached to this report. And so we're just seeking council's direction as to whether the $87,500 of tax levy funding raised in 2018 should be carried forward to 2021 or to be reallocated to another reserve for the purpose of meeting the township's future obligations. Another project that we noted in the capital carry forward schedules included the new flooring in the municipal office. It's township staff's recommendation that the new flooring in the municipal office no longer be funded until such time as a space needs analysis is completed for the municipal office. And so we just want to seek council's direction that is okay that this project be removed from capital carry forward projects. So on the bottom of page 6 of 103 discusses the discretionary reserves in accordance with bylaw number 7-2020. And the table on page 7 of 103 discusses how much we've been contributing to these reserves over the last few years. As you may recall, as part of the 2020 budget, 100% of the costs related to asset replacement projects have been funded by the Asset Management Discretionary Reserve as opposed to the tax levy, which is resulting in a greater need to contribute more funds to the Asset Management Discretionary Reserve. The 2021 amount also includes the $240,000 for the aggregate levy. So we receive these funds in our operating funds, but we then transfer more than half of the funds to a capital discretionary reserve for the purpose of funding public works repaving projects. This is consistent with what we have done in 2020 as well. As you may recall, the 2019 asset management plan recommended that the township maintain a minimum balance of $2 million and a maximum balance of $4 million in its asset management discretionary reserve. So the bottom of page 7 of 103 just provides council with what total projected balance as of December 31st, 2021, based on the proposed budget that's currently presented to council, what it looks like our balance in our asset management discretionary reserve is going to be. So it is within the 2 million and 4 million target balance. As I previously indicated, I will be providing the actuals prior to budget approval. We continue to get invoices and continue to work on completing projects from 2020. Page 8 discusses our previous allocations as it relates to our surpluses. And so in 2018 and 2019, our general surpluses were fully allocated to the asset management discretionary reserve. And this was based on a council resolution from council. We allocate all budget surpluses to this reserve for the purpose of meeting future asset management obligations. It is not clear at this time if we're going to have a surplus at the end of the year, just because of the current COVID-19 circumstances. However, we have received funding from the province of 190,500 to hopefully address the revenue shortfalls and the increased operating expenditures as it relates to the pandemic. The bottom of page 8 of 103 discusses the cash in lieu of parkland reserve. This is a restricted reserve and can be utilized for specific items in accordance with the Planning Act. I've outlined how much we have received in this reserve from 2013 to 2020, year to date. I've also outlined what the projected balance in the reserve is as of December 31st, 2021, based on the proposed projects in 2021. I tried to get a more accurate figure for the 2021 estimated funds received in the cash in lieu of parkland reserve, just based on discussions with County of Wellington planning staff. Unfortunately, the number of consents and severances projected for 2021 to 2030 is difficult to predict due to more restrictive provincial policy and the fact that eligible properties are only allowed one consent since 2005. So I've provided a conservative estimate of 3 consents per year, which amounts to the 40,500 noted in this table. The bottom of page 9 of 103 discusses development charges and the collections from 2013 to 2020 year to date. In 2020, we have a significant amount of DCs collected, and it relates to 544,000 that was collected in 2020 from a developer that entered into a development charges credit agreement with the township in 2012. Page 10 of 103 discusses the projected balances in the various development charges restricted reserves based on the proposed 2021 projects. As you may recall, in the 2019 development charges study, township road projects are eligible to be DC funded at a rate of 13.6%. And so the capital forecast prepared has those projects funded at 13.6% DC funding. Page 11 of 103 discusses grants. 2 of our main grants that fund our capital program, and more specifically our public works capital program, are gas tax funding and the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund formula-based funding. Unfortunately, based on correspondence that we received from the Ministry of Infrastructure in 2019, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund grant funding is currently under review, and we have yet to receive our 2021 allocation. But should we receive the 2021 allocation, similar to previous years, our practice has been to utilize that for public works infrastructure projects, so bridges, culverts, roads, and it assists with implementing some of the recommendations from the asset management plan in terms of improving our current infrastructure. The bottom of page 11 of 103 discusses the aggregate levy revenue that we receive, and this is based on shipments in the township. And so similar to previous years, there's allocation in the operating budget, which funds our public works operating budget, and it also funds our public works capital budget for a road repaving project. So the budget as currently presented includes 240,000 in our capital budget. More than half of the aggregate levy is now funding our capital program, which is great to see. Page 12 of 103 just discusses how the capital forecast has been prepared. So it is definitely a great planning document, and it takes into consideration various studies, including our development charges study, our energy conservation and demand management plan, our recreation and parks master plan, parks master plan, and recommended phasing for the PCC park, the master fire plan, the equipment replacement schedule, our 2019 Ontario Structure Inspection Manual Report for our bridges and culverts, and our 2019 Asset Management Plan. On page 13 of 103, just I'll quickly go over this because it will likely change as we move forward through this process and we obtain council's direction on various matters, but it just describes what the proposed capital budget and forecast is for 2021 compared to previous years. These are also incorporated as schedules to the report in the form of graphs. Page 13, again, summarizes the capital program and how it's being funded. So you'll notice that in 2020, our approved capital program was a bit higher than what's being proposed in 2021. And that relates to some non-recurring grants that we received that were funding the 2020 capital program. So this includes our one-time federal gas tax funding, top-up payment of $224,000 that we received in 2019. That was utilized in 2020 for our public works capital program. It also includes grant funding that we were approved for Moyers Bridge and McLean Road Concession 7, which funded our 2020 capital program for public works. And it also includes OCIF formula funding of $169,000. I previously indicated that I'm not aware what the funding will be for 2021. And so we're awaiting obtaining that correspondence from the province. Page 14 discusses the 2021 proposed 10-year plan compared to what was presented in 2020 and 2019. So that's my quick overview of the report.
All right, thank you, Mary. I'm sure plenty of work went into that report. You did a great job. I guess, Mr. Schwendinger, do you want to, John, do you just want to keep rolling through the department heads? Then we'll go back and we'll do the sheets. You comfortable? Is that what you're referring to? You're muted.
It's your call, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted us to get an overview of what the staff wanted to do.
I think what I'll do is I'll get each department to give the report and then we'll go back and deal with the actual budget sheet. So Mr. Schwendinger, doesn't have to be too thorough. Is he there? I don't even know if he's here.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. What are you requesting? You're muted.
Just the 6.13, talk about the open space study, then we'll go to the chief. We'll roll through those and then we'll do the budget sheets. Or what's easier? Does that work for everyone?
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, so my document is still freezing here. I apologize for the connection issues I'm having.
Mr. Chair, if it's easier for those having connection issues, I can always share my screen and bring up the appropriate page if that helps.
Give Glenn a minute, or we can just dive into the good stuff.
Yeah, maybe Courtney, could you try and share that one? I'm trying to access this document here. It's still freezing.
Yes, I'll just share my screen on the page with the space needs analysis so we can follow along.
All right, thank you. Okay, yeah, so the space needs analysis, what we're doing there is just giving an update. The municipality had an update or a space needs analysis done a number of years ago, and council of the day didn't implement the recommendations for various reasons, but which they couldn't at the time, which was fine. So what we're doing is updating that now. We've been in touch with the firm that did the work, so that giving them some new input information so that we can just update that so that we can make sure that the facility is right sized for what we need. What we're also looking at doing is a key component of that is to ensure that we have a council chambers that will be able to be used to have council meetings back in person so that we can have the proper separation and things like that. Because right now, we're not able to do that. So that's what that project is for.
All right, okay. Let's get into Chief Gomes, and we'll get into these capital budget sheets. We'll start doing the good work here. No, sorry, not good work, but are you there, Chief Gomes?
Yeah, would you like me to go ahead?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind.
Okay. So in regards to the capital budget items from fire, it's fairly light for 2021. So the first item on your agenda was just replacement of our apparatus tires on aerial 33. This aligns with our asset management we have and our replacement schedule for our fleet tires. So what we've decided to do is based on an NFPA standard of replacing tires every 7 years. That's what they figure is probably a good time to replace them based on the breakdown of the rubber composition of the tires that we set up a schedule. So we did, but we thought 7 years didn't really align too well with the life schedules of our fleet. So for most of our vehicles, 5 of the 6, they have a 20-year lifespan, and then our aerial has a 25-year lifespan. So we decided that halfway through a 20-year life cycle, we should replace the tires at 10 years. And then that's for 5 of our fleet. And our aerial, that we would replace those twice during its lifespan around the 8-year mark. So it's come up for 2021 that we should be replacing our tires on the aerial, and we hope to do so. Any questions on that item?
Yes, there'll be some discussions. Chief, just a question for you. I tried to find NFPA 1911 just to read the whole standard last night, and I was having a lot of difficulty. Do we, as a corporation or the fire department, as part of that corporation, have the NFPA standards or access to them other than paper? So essentially, if you're able to quote a standard, you could attach a PDF or something. Last night I would have to pay $60 to read the standard, and I didn't really feel like doing that.
Okay, part of your comment, sorry, Mayor, we're cut off the beginning part. I caught the end. So I think what you were asking is that we attach a copy of the standard or the applicable part of that standard to this request. Is that correct?
That's the nut and bolts of it. Is just I tried to find the standard last night on the internet, and I wasn't able to. So just not that I really need more reading, but it's just nice to be able to read the guideline in its entirety. I was just wondering if we have it ourselves, like the fire department, easily accessible in the PDF. Like I don't want to have to come into the hall and like pull paper. That's not my intention. But if you do, that's great. Otherwise, and then we'll hold on. And so I will open this up to council. Actually, you might just, let's just discuss this one. So Councillor Spools, do you have any questions for the chief on this one? No, you're muted, sir. You're muted. I think you're still muted, Councillor Spools.
Sorry. Are you saying that you're not relying on the NFPA guidelines, so that you're following a 10-year cycle? Is that what I understood?
Yeah, so NFPAs are recommended standards that the fire service utilize. However, based on our history, we were finding that our rubber of the quality of tires that we were purchasing was degrading around the 10 to 12 year mark. And that's why we chose that time frame to replace them, just to justify our expenditures when it does come to tires. We didn't want to change them too frequently because the tread is still good on them. It's the rubber compound that seems to degrade on them. And like I mentioned, usually we were finding that was between the 10 and 12 year mark for our fire apparatus.
No, I agree with that approach. there is a document from the Fire Protection Research Foundation that's basically says there's no, that they did a research and on the tires, and it's exactly what you're saying. The tires, you replace them when the rubber does not, is breaking down. And they try to find if there's a rationalization for replacing every 7 years. They couldn't find it. It wasn't based on scientific information. So I can send that to everybody. They can have a look at it if they wish.
Okay. Any,
That would be great. Thanks, Counselor.
Councillor Bailey?
No, sorry, no questions for the chief.
Councillor Balmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief. Well, I support this direction. It's based on real life experience, reality, measurements. It's good to have a guideline that we start checking at the 7-year mark, perhaps. But I think it's wise what you're choosing to do. If it's okay with the chair, just if I could ask the chief a general question about the aerial, how it's working out as this is, I think, one of the first pieces of used equipment we've purchased in a long time. How is it working out otherwise as in terms of a piece of used equipment?
So hopefully I don't get broken up again. Connection was unstable, so hopefully you can hear me. So as far as the aerial goes, I think it was definitely a good purchase for us. It's out of all the apparatus that we have in our inventory, it gets used the least. And we did that on purpose, just so that it's only responding when it's necessary to building stock that has 2 or more stories. It's industrial buildings, commercial buildings, that sort of thing. So that's working out quite well. So there isn't a lot of wear and tear on the aerial. We did find in the first couple of years when that was used as a lead vehicle that there was a lot of wear and tear. It was hard to get parts because American La France did go out of business. So we did change the use of that vehicle. It's working out well for us right now. So I'm really pleased with it.
Thank you, Chief. So based on that, the previous aerial, I think we were able to use it till it was age 25. Do you think this one will be able to be kept in service?
I don't know if you
until
guys were able to hear me or not. I'm not hearing anything back.
We were able to hear you. Can you hear us?
Pardon, Mr. Mayor?
We heard yours, and then Councillor Balmer had a follow-up question. I don't believe you were able to hear him.
No, I missed that question.
Okay, if I could, Chief, based on your assessment, then we got the previous aerial it was in service till it was 25 years old. Do you think this one will be in service until it's 25 years old? Is it capable of making that?
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you again.
Chief Gomes, can you hear me? Chief Gomes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, he's asking, based on the previous aerial's lifespan of 25 years, do you believe you'll get 25 years of service out of this current aerial? Total, like age, not us an additional 25.
Yes, so we purchased the device after it had 12 years of service, 2003 aerial, and definitely we'll get 25 years in total out of it. My calculations are correct, 2028 be replaced.
Good, thank you.
Okay, where are we? Councillor Goyda.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think there might be a little bit of I'm confused. So, Chief, are we going to a 7-year replacement cycle, or are we going to a measurement and condition replacement cycle on these tires? Because I believe I heard 2 different components from the councillors.
Okay, I missed some of the communication again, my apologies. So what we decided to of our tire inventory in 2018 was to create a life cycle for our tires based on the information that we had both in-house and from external providers. So we decided that every 10 years we would replace the tires on a 20-year fire truck. So that's 5 of the 6. So halfway through the life cycle of our tankers, our pumpers, and the rescue truck, we would replace the tires. So they would be replaced once in 20 years. And then with the aerial, because of the lifespan is 25 years, that was to be replaced. The tires are to be replaced around the 8-year mark. So they would be replaced twice during that life cycle.
Okay, so today really what we're discussing is where that money is allotted in our budget. So we're moving the money from an operating or requirement for you to do these replacements from an operating component of the budget to the asset management plan. Is that what we're discussing today?
Oh,
No?
Are you asking the fire chief?
Yes, I'm asking the fire chief.
We had a discussion, Mary, myself, and come from either capital or operating budget for this project of tire. We just felt at the time when we created our asset management plan that it was an effective use of 4 items such as fleet tire. We did have a very heavy year last year with the replacement of the tires. I think it's just under $20,000 because we did a lot of. But moving forward, definitely if council will allocated through capital or operating funding, it does. I can maintain a schedule for tire replacement either way.
I have to apologize, Chief. You were broken up, but we got the most of it. And from page 23, and correct me if I'm, no, sorry, my eyes again, we're 22, page 22. It allots the $5,238 in asset management. So that would be moving it. And from your operating budget to capital. But from what I heard from you, it was a little broken, is that if council's desire, you would, I'm not a wordsmith, but you would manage it through your operating budget. But what I'm hearing is it's a little difficult to manage because it could be, you know, year 6, could be year 8. All of a sudden you have 8 tires that need to be replaced, and that could eat up a big portion of your operating budget. So are those statements fairly correct, Chief?
They are. So it's not consistent year over year. That's one reason we put it in as a capital. Plus, the money allocated for tire replacement is used $5,000 threshold or higher, and that was another part of our decision-making process. Right now, it's not allocated through our operating budget that we have for vehicles. And so under the audit, they did move it into that, but it's not allocated through our original budget for vehicle maintenance. So once again, it's whatever our financial director thinks or council thinks is a better way to manage the funds. That's fine. I can accommodate either way.
I'm gonna have to go to our CAO for some advice in his experience. Mr. CAO, in your history of being in municipal employment, you ever encountered dealing with, you know, a budget item that isn't necessarily a nice, easy flow, and it only pops up every, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years, and how would you manage that?
Yep,
Mary?
yes, there's a number of examples I can think of where what we've done is say you have an expense for various inspections or equipment replacement, but it's only going to happen every 5 years, 8 years, 7 years, whatever, like you referenced. So one thing that can be fairly easily done is to flatline your operating budget is just, you know, for discussion's sake, say it's something that's going to take place every 5 years. So what you can do is just incorporate an amount into your operating budget spread over the 5 years. So say you needed $10,000 every 5 years, you could put $2,000 into your operating budget, or take $2,000 from your operating budget, and then just simply put it into a reserve. And then every 5 years, then you have the sufficient amount of money that you need. I've seen that done for bridge inspections. I've seen it done for tire replacements, various pieces of things that you just need a purchase on a extended frequency like that. It's a pretty easy way to do it.
So that seems like an interesting solution. However, this next replacement would just have to come directly out of the operating budget for 2021. Is that correct, Ms. Hassan? Because we haven't been saving up $6,000 for these tires, correct?
Well, it's being funded through the asset management discretionary reserve, and we're contributing to that reserve year over year. So it's not a tax levy hit.
I understand that, but it also isn't coming out of the operating budget, right?
No, it's showing up in capital right now, but as Fire Chief Gomes has indicated, it doesn't make a difference if it's capital or operating. The reason we put it in capital is because it's a non-recurring item, and we didn't want to have the operating budget fluctuate so significantly year over year.
Yeah, I understand that, and I get that it's a $5,000 purchase, which I guess technically makes it a capital item, but that's because it's cumulative. There's 6 tires. If there were only replacing 3 tires, it would be under the 5,000K. And I like the idea of the chief saying that he could manage it in the operating budget. We have significant pressures, even though this is somewhat minor in nature. If council would like to discuss Mr. Schwendinger's recommendation that, you know, the tire replacement be scheduled through, if it's every 7 years, $1,000 every year taken from the operating budget and put in a special reserve for tires or whatever the dollar amount would be. I think that's an appropriate place, because to me, tires they're not an asset management plan item, especially individually. Just because there's 8 of them on the back of one truck, that puts them past the threshold. This is more of an operating maintenance issue. So, Councilor Spillis, what are your thoughts on Mr. Schwendinger's comments of just, you know, allotting annually a set amount that the director and the chief decide is sufficient to be pulled aside and set reserve to deal with this spike in costs every so many years?
I'd like to ask our CEO a question. In my previous life, it was always beneficial to put as much as possible into the capital budget, because we would be getting subsidy from the province and the feds. In the municipal sphere of activities, is there a possibility that we could get funding for capital costs such as tires type of thing, blended in amongst all the other capital projects, or it doesn't matter? That could be it's out of one pocket or the other.
My experience has been years and years ago. Yeah, they did just give you X number of dollars towards your capital project or capital budget. Sorry. Now the funding trend is very much you apply for a specific project, such as a bridge or a road or a facility or whatever, not just for general stuff and tires. I don't think you'd get any funding for tires through a capital program from any government.
Okay, and the next question. We have a fleet of trucks where the tires for those must be pretty expensive as well. I assume that's covered out of the operating budget?
You're referring to Public Works?
Yes.
That's correct. That's my understanding. Perhaps the Director of Public Works, he's been cut off the call. Yeah, that's my understanding, because there's more trucks there and they have a lot higher frequency of use. The mileage is much higher. They're replaced on a much more frequent basis, so that does just come out of the operating budget.
So I'm fine being consistent. If tires are deemed a consumable, well, let's, as our financial officer is suggesting, as we save up for it and expense it as an operating budget item.
Thank you, Councilor Spillis. Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, I do like that idea of just setting some aside every year.
You might want to
Just
turn your video off.
if that. I like the idea of setting some aside every year. It seems to just keep that cost consistent. Just wondering if it's opening a can of worms with other items. I'm just trying to think right now if it would apply to other things,
In which,
and then it would get,
in which sense, like other items, like?
yeah, I'm just trying to rack my brain to what else. It just seems like a good idea, but then we're saying, if we're gonna do it here, why don't we do it here? Why don't we do it here and here? And then it gets a little bit snowballed if we're setting that sort of precedent, but I do like the idea.
I personally don't have anything on the top of my mind that would reoccur on an 8-year and 9-year schedule. Maybe CAO or somebody else can chime in if this were to come before us again. I mean, we could just deal with it individually unless Glenn or Chief, you have anything you want to add to that? Is there any other
Well,
items?
I'd like to just add to this. Previously, we did have a number of different reserves and we consolidated it into an asset management discretionary reserve to address asset management items. And so it really helps with the administrative requirements. So like having several different reserves administratively, it can be a burden.
We understand that. We're just trying to keep these tires in the operating budget versus an asset management plan. I need to ask if Councillor Goyda and Councillor Balmer are still on the call to ensure we have quorum. Okay,
Yes, I'm here.
okay.
Sorry, I did drop for a little bit, so I have to apologize. I missed what Councillor Stapoulis said, but I did hear before that.
So just in the future, if Matthew doesn't, if anybody drops, send Glenn a quick email that you've dropped.
Okay.
That way, because if you don't have your video on, then we'll
Yeah.
ensure that we keep quorum. He seems to be, he monitors his email during the meetings. Councillor Spillis, would you mind repeating your comments, please?
Yeah, I was okay whether it was in capital operating on a basis of the discussion with our CAO. In the past, my past life, what we try to do always was to capitalize on it as much as possible because we would get funding for the province, and the CEO said, typically that doesn't happen anymore. You gotta go for each specific project request for, so it's one way or the other way. And my other comment was, I asked, what about the maintenance trucks? There's a lot of tires there, and for consistency, I said it would make sense to have all the tires as an operating thing, as opposed to having just the fire trucks being a capital.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spillis. Councillor Goyda, did you hear Councillor Bailey's comments?
Yep, I heard Councillor Bailey.
Okay, so Councillor Balmer, you're up.
Can you hear me?
10-4.
Okay, I would support leaving them in the asset management plan. We decided last year to put the tires in the asset management plan. I think it works well there. They are a large chunk of money, as the chief indicated. It meets the $5,000 threshold. It makes it easier for staff to manage. And if they choose to defer it a year, it's no big deal. It just carries forward, and they can manage it as needed. I think it's neat and tidy and clean to keep it in the asset management plan, as we chose to do last year.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Balmer, and Councillor Goyda.
Thank you. I did hear what Glenn, the CIO, had said about in his past, where something would cost $10,000 in a certain year, you would allocate a certain amount every year to save up for it. And I think that's a great idea, but I think essentially that's what we're doing anyway with our asset management plan is that we are saving every year for when these expenses come up. And it's not dedicated strictly for tires, but it's looking at all of those things more, I guess, holistically or broadly, again, across the whole organization. So I tend to agree with Councillor Balmer that I think it's cleaner and simpler and easier to track along for staff by keeping it in the capital, but really it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me where it comes from, as long as they're getting replaced when they should.
Okay, so we're gonna need some direction on this. You know, I see it as an operating budget item, but the chief has said he can manage it either way. I just, I like consistency across the corporation. Public Works tires are managed through the operating budget. And, you know, so I don't want to spend too much more time on this. So I would like just an answer whether you support the tires being in the asset management plan or just remain in the operating budget. So that's the question. So Councillor Spoulos.
I don't have a strong choice either way, given that it is the way it is, let's leave it alone.
Okay, and where do we go next? Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I'm coming from a similar thought. Either way, I'm fine with leaving it where it is, as long as it's easy to manage.
Okay, good. And I know where Councillor Balmer's and going to stand, but we'll let him say it. Councillor Balmer?
Yeah, I support keeping it in the asset management plan, understanding, of course, if there's an immediate need for a tire due to a blowout, that's annual maintenance. So it doesn't lock them into having to run around a flat tire until it comes up in the asset management plan. It's just reducing the work for staff as much as possible.
Okay, and Councillor Goida?
Yeah, I agree to keep it in the asset management.
Okay, and so now Chief Gomes, is Chief Gomes still here? You got your connection?
Yeah, I keep losing the connection here and there, but I'm here right now.
Okay, so I think you need to speak about the structural firefighting gear.
Okay. This is something that we ask for almost every year. We update our existing inventory of structural firefighting gear. So we're scheduled to replace 3 sets of gear for next year. And that amount totals $9,153.
Okay, pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments? Councillor Spoulos?
No,
Councillor Bailey?
No question on that. I'm just trying to find, I think in the plan in a couple of years, we were replacing 9. Sorry, I'm trying to find and I just kind of wondered about the spacing out of that, whether those 9 should be coming forward. So I don't know if this is the time to talk about that, but sorry.
Well, Chief Gomes, can you speak of the replacement cycles for the gear and how they land on each year and how many?
Sure. This is based on NFPA standard again, and they recommend that gear be replaced every 10 years. By that time, they feel the material has degraded enough where it's not providing the proper protection to our firefighters. So we've got a schedule, just like we did with tires. So we've got a schedule of when each set of gear is coming up due for replacement, and we've got 3 sets due for replacement next year in 2021.
Now, is the reason why there's 9 in a forecasted year because there was a big hire, so there's 9 gears that are coming due? I think maybe that's part of the questioning line from Councillor Bailey is why 3,
Yes.
then 9, then
Okay.
2, and that's kind of where she's trying to get the answers.
So, Mr. Mayor and Councillor, the 9, if I remember correctly, that was only to be purchased if we did go ahead with a satellite station. And as you know, staff did recommend that we push that project for 1 more year and hopefully set up a committee that's not only but also council and decide on the direction that we're going to take there. So those 9 sets of be required. However, in 2025, we do have a large purchase that is required of gear. And at that time, because of the amount, definitely we would look tender process for the gear at that time.
Thank you.
Councillor Balmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. I don't have an issue with the replacement of the gear, but I do have a process question related to the gear. If this is just regular replacement, and I believe this gear is, obviously it's capital, we're talking about the capital budget. How come I don't understand why this isn't just a regular replacement on the asset management plan and why it needs a capital expenditure sheet? Is this over and above? I'm trying to figure that out.
Councillor Balmer, we do capital budget sheets for any projects that are proposed for 2021. So just so council's aware
Well,
how
I
the
guess-
projects are being funded.
Oh, okay, so this isn't exceptional. This is just built into the plan already. This is just normal course of business then.
Yes, we've had these in our capital budget and forecast for many years now since I've started, so.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm sorry. I sometimes get confused between these sheets and the ones where we're going to do something new, such as the lift, which was not in the forecast, but this was. So I always see these sheets as the things that we're proposing to do that were over and above what was already planned for. Thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
I'll maybe expand on that. I kind of like Councillor Balmer's direction on this. If this is just a regular replacement that's scheduled, do we need to see it, or is there some policy that's dictating that, other than past history, that this needs to be before us? I mean, are we going to? It's another process question. If we go to tender for these for 3 quotes and you get your tender and you choose the provider, it's in the asset management plan. Does it need to be before council each year, or when it comes due? It could be either Mary or Glenn.
I believe it's a budget process, so I'll defer to Mary for this one.
So the capital budget sheets, they provide further detail about each item and why it's needed. It's basically the department heads information as to why each item is needed in order for council to understand a little bit more about each of the 2021 proposed items. So this is a process that we've followed in the past, but if council doesn't want it for items that are already in our asset management plan, then that could be council's direction.
We can have that discussion at a later time, but it might be something we can look at to. Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chair, it just may have been my misunderstanding that I assumed this was here because it was a base budget increase, and I didn't recognize that it wasn't. So I could be just have to do my homework better. I'll keep on top of that. Thank you.
Councillor Goyda. You're muted, but I think you're saying.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're just commenting on right now whether this should be in the sheets, the capital expenditure sheets?
No, you're just commenting on the capital project.
Oh,
in general.
sorry, I got lost there. No, I have no questions. Thank you.
I have no further questions either. I think that is the end of your sheets, Chief Gomes, is that correct?
That's correct. That's all from the fire department.
Does Ms. Hassan need any clarification on any of those 2?
No, so what I've incorporated in the notes for council direction related to the fire and rescue items are that Fire Chief Gomes send the NFPA standard on tire replacements to all of council, and that staff continue to keep the fire and rescue services tire replacements in the capital budget to be funded by the asset management discretionary reserve.
That's right. And are we going to the 7 years or the 10? Or I just want to make sure that's captured. Is it the NFPA standard, or is it the PUSLM standard for replacement?
My understanding is the PUSLM standard.
Is that what your understanding was, Ms. Hassan? For the
Yes,
replacement
I didn't obtain any direction from council as it relates to which standard. I assume that council agrees with Fire Chief Gomes' standard of 10 years or 8 years, depending on the life cycle of the fire truck.
I agree with that. Councillor Spoulos, you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Councillor Bailey, yeah. Councillor Balmer. Just making sure
Yes.
everything's clear, yeah. And nodding, Councillor Goyda, yeah. Okay, just making sure. And the second one was pretty clear. It's just purchase gear. All right, thank you, Chief. It's nice to see you, even though we didn't have the video option. Oh, Councilor Willis.
Yes,
We need to vote on these?
not for Councilor, not for our chief. I didn't realize you're proceeding on asking questions with each item of the agenda. So I have a question of the CEO on the previous item, if I can beg your indulgence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. CAO, with respect to the office plan, with this COVID matter, it looks like the offices have to be hardened, as well as you mentioned that we need extra office space for proper council chambers. Why aren't we including any design costs in this year for undertaking the necessary designs, and in subsequent years for undertaking necessary construction activities?
There were funds that were budgeted for 2020 that are being used for that. And then the additional funds that were reflected in the sheet that you saw there, that was in addition to do that. So it is to prepare a preliminary design and options to look at, so that we can have a package ready to go for when funding opportunities become available to us. So that is the intent. It's to do the assessment and to come up with the floor plan and preliminary designs to move forward.
Okay, so you're saying you have enough funds then for this year?
Correct. There was some budgeted for 2020. We're utilizing those. What aren't expended yet this year will be carried forward, and then that amount that was requested was in addition to, and those two combined will be enough. Yes.
Okay, and the other question was capital costs associated with these renovations. I didn't see any funds in the 2021 or 2022 and so on.
Right. So there were a few building maintenance items that were budgeted. What we were suggesting to do is just hold off on those, such as, light replacement and flooring and things like that. Let's not expend funds on those and then have to renovate the building right after we're doing it. So we're pausing those projects, recommending that those funds just be set aside until we have the plan for the building, and then go forward with that. So we haven't specifically set a budget for the building because we don't have a cost estimate for it yet. But what we're doing is just recommending that we pause some of the planned maintenance expenditures until that's.
Okay, so just a suggestion, Mr. CEO, you may want to put a placeholder in for future construction costs.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. Just run this question line. Councillor Bailey, do you have any questions regarding possible renovations at Municipal Center due to COVID, and if any funding comes down for the CAO? Or
No, I think that conversation answered a bit of my questions. I also wondered, due to COVID, how that was going to change the planning of the municipal, renovation.
We're hoping there'll be lots of funding grants from the,
Yeah.
from the feds is what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Balmer?
No questions.
Okay. Councillor Goyda?
No questions, thanks.
All right. So I think Louis is still here. We appreciate him attending today. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Now, next up is Ms. Hassan. We'll discuss your laptops.
So on page 25, there are some laptop replacements in accordance with our 5-year life cycle for laptops. And so those are noted there. And we're just creating a capital budget sheet as this relates to a 2021 capital item, and they will be funded from asset management discretionary reserve and the building reserve for the building permit revenue, as some of the laptops relate to the building department.
Okay, perfect. Any questions? Councillor Spoulos?
No questions.
Councillor Bailey?
I do have a question. I'm assuming the amounts are budgeted based on like a PC type laptop, but I didn't know if there was ever any discussion about switching over to Apple, and if so, would that change the funding?
So we have not had discussions on switching over to Apple's. However, we are working with the County of Wellington and the other lower tier municipalities on an IT service delivery review project. And so we are looking at perhaps doing some more joint purchasing in the future. So hopefully that will reduce our per laptop cost going forward.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, and Councillor Goyda?
I do have two, which I think are just quick questions, but I'm looking at the capital expenditure sheet, and it also includes 5 docking stations, and I have no idea what that is. What does that mean?
So it's what you put your computer on, like in the office of a docking station. Courtney, can you answer that one a little bit better?
Doesn't it charge it?
Yeah, it charges it, and I guess the various wires associated with it. But sorry, I'm not the best with IT.
Okay.
Sorry, I can just help clarify. It's just a docking station that hooks up. So any Ethernet cord for the internet, your power cord, you can hook up other accessories like keyboards and that to it. So if you did need to undock your laptop, let's say for a meeting where you need to go to a separate meeting, you're not unhooking all of those cords. They stay connected to your docking station. So it's it's definitely like a convenience.
Okay, but that has to get replaced with the computer, like the cord. Is it just cords? Like, can cords not, do cords have the same life cycle, I guess, as a laptop?
It's actually it's a piece of hardware. So it sits on the desk and the cords connect to it, and it works with that particular laptop model.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. That's fine. And then I just also had a question about when the laptops are replaced, what happens to the old ones? Is there any ability to sell them or use them for something else, or donate them even, or do they just go, or do we just throw them out?
Crickets.
So we do, OnServe will take some of the laptops back. So we do order them right now through OnServe.
Okay.
And so when we retire a computer, if it's past the 5 years of age or older, they will take them back, and then we'll get a new one. So we haven't explored any other options such as donation or anything.
Okay, do they give any money back when they take them back, or do they just take them and dispose of them?
Mary, I don't believe we get any funds back from the
No.
laptops.
No, I believe by the time that they get replaced, they're not, they
Worthless.
really need to be replaced.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay. I just thought maybe there was some opportunity to get a little bit back there, but that's fine. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So that's everyone. I have no questions. What's next? I think that's it for you, Mrs. Sand, for now. Is that correct?
On page 27 of 103, it's the marketing and branding
Oh, yes,
implementation.
yes, yes. Sorry about that. You want,
No problem. So
uh,
just a quick overview on this. As you may recall, the township has been successful in various grant applications as it relates to the signage initiative. You will have also noticed that we have a beautiful new website and some upgrades to the website this year to ensure that the website is mobile friendly and that it's branded in accordance with our new logo and brand. So that was completed this year through grant funding. Another stage of some of the implementation of the new logo and brand for the township is the signage initiative in our Main Street area. And that was funded through the Ontario Main Street Revitalization Initiative, and that project is almost complete as well. Some of our other plans recommended undertaking signage in our parks and our various buildings, in our various recreational facilities in our municipal office. We were fortunate enough to be approved for the Rural Economic Development Program grant funding for this. And as you may recall, the County of Wellington continues to provide funding as it relates to implementing some of the recommendations from our business retention and expansion plan. This funding amounts to $25,000 a year. And so as part of our grant application for the signage initiative, the County of Wellington has indicated that they would be providing the $25,000 a year for 2019 and 2020. The final phase that's noted in 2021 relates to the signage at their parks, trails, signage outside of our Main Street area. So that's what this capital budget sheet is just advising council about.
Thank you, Ms. Hassan. Councillor Splos.
I support the project. It's third-party funding as well, so no questions.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
No questions.
Okay, Councillor Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Hassan. I got to thank you and staff for the new website. I don't think we've made a big enough deal about it at council when we had they came before it was launched, and I appreciate Councillor Bailey asking the question about accessibility. I was able to take a sneak peek preview tour of it to check out the accessibility, and it was phenomenal. And finding stuff since, it's so much easier to use than the previous one. And I hope the residents find it easy to use as well. It is so glorious to have a search function that works, and the information is meaningful and helpful, and even the historical tidbits that are on there make it interesting. So thank you so much. I understand staff had a big role in deciding what was on there, and I think you've done an excellent job. So I hope you hear positive feedback from the residents who are now using it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Balmer. I will pass that message on to staff because staff in the finance department and staff in Courtney's department did a tremendous job on that project. So I will pass that on to staff. Thank you.
Councillor Goyda.
I have no questions. I would echo that same sentiment from Councillor Balmer, but yeah, I support this project. I have no questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I support this project as well. I pay homage to the old logo on my suit every day. I wear the old, but this new logo and the rebranding, I think you have done a wonderful job. I'm excited to see the signs go up, and you know, great work by everybody involved. Thank you, Mrs. Hassan. That's supported.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Can I?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Bailey.
No, I just had a question. Was the launch of the website ever publicized, like in the Pioneer or any of the local papers?
CAO Schwendiger did recommend that we do a media release, and we did. So it was publicized.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I think, is Mr. Fowler back on the call? Is that the phone number down the bottom?
I believe so. Mike, is that you?
It is Mike. I'm trying to help him unmute here.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, how are you?
You know, it's probably best I don't answer that right now.
Don't throw the phone through the wall or the computer or whatever is giving you trouble. So I believe you're up next, and you're going to speak to us about what do we have here? I thought the first one was the left, but it's the phase 1 of Parks Master Plan.
Yeah. So I apologize in advance. I'm communicating through my cell, and I'm currently referencing off of printed sheets. So if I'm a little tardy on my responses, I apologize now.
Mayor Sealy, I think we forgot to talk about the used scissor lift on page 29 of 103.
I thought that was the first one, and I don't know why my computer. But that's the one I thought we were doing next. So let's talk about the scissor lift and open up here. Mr. Fowler, you may begin. There,
Trying to find it. Please bear with me.
no problem. I'm having technical difficulties with my two screens as well, so.
So working in conjunction with the Health and Safety Committee, it was identified through our last audit that a proper lifting working platform device be considered for council's approval to assist in basically everyday maintenance of our facilities, including light bulb changes and any type of overhead work. Public Works currently has 3 individuals who are certified to work from heights, and we also have the proper rigging gear that would also go along with this unit. The benefit of this unit is it'll be mobile, where Public Works will be able to trailer it around to different facilities to be able to work on, whether it be the arena, the ice pad, Public Works, fire, or admin. I guess the proposal which I brought forward entailed buying a gently used unit from one of our rental vendors. This was to soften the blow, we'll say, as far as the upfront cost of purchasing this equipment. A brand new unit would be 3 times the cost, which was presented as used. So I'm open to any questions from you or any councilors, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fowler, how often do we need a lift in Public Works? Is this something we need to rent once a year, or, you know, is it utilized frequently?
Basically, the main concern and need for this unit is basically light bulb changes. As basic as it sounds, we are currently using ladders, which is not safe. Anything over 10 feet requires some kind of safety device to be accompanied with that ladder. Unfortunately, a lot of our ceiling heights are over 10 feet. So it's very hard to set up a maintenance schedule for light bulbs, and you really don't know when they're going to burn out.
How much is it to rent a lift per day, or whatever the rental period would be?
Usually the lift would cost about $250 for an 8-hour day. Unfortunately, the pickup and delivery is also about $150 to $200. So we're looking at around $500 for an 8-hour use. It may accomplish what we need to get done for that day, but I can pretty much guarantee you we'll come back the next day and there'll be another bulb out somewhere.
Are these a complex piece of equipment? Is it going to give us a maintenance nightmare to keep it operating as a used piece of equipment?
I wouldn't say it's overly complex, no more complex than any of our plow units or graders or backhoe. It's an all electric battery unit. It will come with a charger, which will have its own fixed station within Public Works, where when not in use, it will sit on basically a trickle charger system. A little bit of hydraulics, but again, if it's properly maintained and repaired, I foresee this type of unit lasting 10 plus years of service, just to the infrequency of use that's going to be required for it.
Is there an installation cost for the charging unit, similar to like if you buy a Tesla, you have to run a wire and a panel? And
no, they're not that complex. It's basically we find a wall outlet and we dedicate that outlet to that charger.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Spillis?
Yeah, my concern is basically getting a used unit, and I just don't want to use false economics by buying a used one, and then 3 years later we need to buy another one. Just question the life cycle of these units. What's their life cycle, and how this particular unit, do you have I don't know if it runs on hours of use or whatever the case may be. So is there a life cycle and what's the life cycle associated with this unit?
So generally, from conversations I've had with our vendor who does distribute and rent these units out, you can pretty much be rest assured it's at least a 10-year reliability rate. We can expect within 5 years to have to replace the battery banks. But as far as the unit itself, as far as mechanical and electrical needs, they're quite confident in offering a 10-year reliability.
Okay, thank you. I'm all for safety of the employees. I have no difficulty supporting this.
Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I understand you said it's a 10-year lifespan, but sorry, how old is the?
You have to turn your video off. I get the first part of your question, which was, just give her a second. Mr. Fowler, I gotta get her to shut her video off.
Just wondering, yes. There we go. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Yep. You have to start from the beginning.
Yeah, I just didn't hear the answer to how old the unit is.
Mr. Fowler?
The current unit that's being proposed is currently 5 years old. And even though it's 5 years old, they will be supplying a new battery bank for this unit. So the battery bank, which is the main power source, will be brand new. The actual unit itself has 5 years of, we'll say, gently used service. I have seen it online, and it appears to be in very good condition.
Great. Is this a type of unit that a staff can use on their own?
Basically, this is the type of unit where you will have one individual who will be responsible for operating it. They will travel up and down the lifting device and do the main required work overhead. Usually a second staff member will be present in case any tools or materials need to be handed up to the lifting device.
Okay, and final question. I think I saw that it goes to 10 feet. If there was to be, for example, some foul ball netting needed on a baseball diamond, would this provide the height to install that netting?
No, it would not. The unit that's being considered is more of an indoor use. It does not have, we'll say, off-road tires. It has very low ground clearance, so it's more or less designed for factory floors, shop floors, ideal situations like that. And to answer the second part of that question, no. The top lift or the top height for working would be around 20 feet for this unit. That would accomplish all our facility needs. That would come nowhere close to trying to put up any type of netting for any type of sporting venue.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Fowler, for the presentation. I support this in principle, but the only questions I have relate back to my experience as a contractor myself. That typically the test, if I were going to choose to rent or buy, was one of if it was going to cost me 50% of the cost to buy. If I was going to spend as much as 50% to rent one as the cost it was to buy one, it'd be better off to buy it. What you said, we're talking about maybe $500 a day to rent one. We're not likely to come up to 50% of the cost of buying this used one in a 1 year's use. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I would summarize it more of a public works convenience for being able to attend any light outages or any type of work that needs to be done overhead at more of a convenience to the public works work schedule, instead of relying on trying to secure a unit from a rental vendor and then wait for the rental vendor to supply it through delivery. It would be, again, a luxury and a convenience to be able to go back to our back shop, grab this unit, replace bulbs, whatever is needed, and we know that we are now compliant, and it was now repaired within compliance of our policies and procedures for health and safety.
Right, understood. And I'm trying to move it from my mind from a luxury and a convenience to a necessity to understand. In your report, you also mentioned that some of this work that you'd be able to do in-house would otherwise cost us about $200 an hour to have a contractor come in and do. How much of that are we typically doing that we'd otherwise be able to do with this lift?
I would say, depending on the severity of how many lights had gone out, usually depends on when I call a contractor in at $200 an hour to change light bulbs. If it comes to we'll say the rink pad, if several banks of lights go out, then it becomes worth it to call a contractor in for $200 an hour. If it becomes an issue where the same bulbs seem to be going out, or to improve just the overall lighting to have basically every bulb lit every day, the convenience is there for Public Works to be able to run over and do it and make sure everything's up and running properly.
You know, I got to say, I think this is a worthwhile opportunity to try something out. It's not going to be a permanent. We buy it. If it works out, we replace it. If it doesn't work out, we'll have the numbers to say it's not worth replacing. So I think I know what I've been hearing is people are glad to see our people doing stuff again. And so if this is an opportunity to keep the staff busy and to keep the facilities at peak, then let's give it a shot. So thank you very much for bringing it forward as a used piece to try out. Appreciate that.
One thing, if I could add, when I spoke with Mr. Fowler about this, one of the additional points that was brought across is sometimes when we do have the need for some maintenance, there's been unfortunately a delay because we couldn't get access to the rental equipment and we couldn't get access to the contractor to come and do some repairs, and that resulted in some unnecessary or delays that weren't well received sometimes. So this helped. This would help with that, us being able to get to more timely repairs.
Councillor Goyda.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, this used scissor lift, is there already one that's been found and is available at this cost, or do you still have to secure that with the vendor?
Before preparation of this proposal to council, some will say homework was done in exploring any type of units available. Some units have been identified. Basically, it was left with the vendor of if it's still available after council, or if council was to approve this motion, then we would be interested in purchasing it. It's also on a first come first basis, whereas another individual may have already bought it by now. But several units were identified and they are all around the same proposed price.
Okay, so even if you lose out on this one that may or may not still be there, you're fairly confident that you can find one that will last us for about 10 years for this price?
Yes, I am. The vendor that I've been in consultation with it's a fairly large organization where they have probably hundreds of these lifts available throughout the province.
Okay. Yeah, so the way I would look at it then is the $7,500, if that's going to last us 10 years, basically costing us $750 a year. And if you're saying it's between $400 and $500 to rent the equipment, plus the inconvenience of when you're going to get it and how you're going to get it, to me, it makes sense, because we'd probably be paying that anyway in the rental equipment. So I know this is paying it all up front, but over the lifespan of it, I think we actually probably will save. So I would support this.
Okay, thank you. Well, I believe you have your answer, Mr. Fowler, for the scissor lift. Any further comments from Mr. Fowler? Going around. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah.
Shut your video off though, please, just to make sure. Thanks.
I was just going to say, I think this is also have to think of it like a service that we're providing. And if we can afford the service, then that's that's great. And I do agree with Glenn that if we can see our own staff out and doing it instead of a hired contractor, I think that's a really great thing for the public to see.
Yeah, for sure. I see other uses for this thing, maintenance, painting, cleaning, whatever. I'm sure they'll find more uses than just light bulbs, but I think it's worth a try, as Councillor Bulmer indicated. Okay. So Ms. Hassan, you don't need any more clarification on that one for the scissor lift?
No,
All right.
I think that the direction from council is that it remains in the capital budget at 7,500 and that a used unit be purchased as recommended by Mr. Fowler.
Correct. All right, Mr. Fowler, you want to speak of the next item?
Are we at Parks?
Yeah, Parks, phase 1 of Parks Master Plan upgrades at Wilson Community Center. Unless I'm wrong, which has been the common theme today, a little frazzled. I think that's the next item.
Okay, so we'll start with Parks, the phase 1 of the Parks Master Plan. As indicated in the capital sheet presented to council, meeting held on November 6, 2019, through council resolution number 2019-391, we received the report 2019-003 regarding the plan, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. Council directed staff to apply for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program for the community culture recreation of the works identified in the Parks Master Plan at the PCC. Staff are to report back on phase 1 with itemizing costing prior to completing the detailed design and request for tender. So as an update on that, staff have been in contact with GM Blue Plan on coming up with a tender, and we'll say phase 1, which will entail rough grade, fine grade, soil and seed for our men's senior soccer pitch. We are currently within a couple weeks of being able to send this to tender. This is going to hopefully commence in April of 2021. So we meet our funding guidelines of May 1st for a construction start. If there's any other questions, I'm pleased to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spools.
I have no questions of the back soccer fields. The question I have is related to the actual phase 1 in the document, which talks about soccer field lighting, parking lot upgrades, lighting poles, et cetera, et cetera. Do we have any indication of whether or not we'll get funding, grant funding for these other elements of the project?
I can speak to that, Councillor Sapoulis. So we did apply to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program as it relates to phase 1 of the Parks Master Plan and phase 2 of the Parks Master Plan. The province has been requesting some additional information from the township in order to determine whether the federal government will approve the project. So hopefully we'll hear back by the end of the year whether or not we are approved for this project.
Great, thank you. I support proceeding as indicated on the budget sheets.
Okay. Councillor Bailey.
No, I don't have any questions about the, it sounds like it's going to tender in the next 2 weeks. So no questions right now.
Okay. Councillor Bulmer.
No questions.
Okay. Councillor Goyda. You're muted.
Sorry, I'm struggling with my computer here. My only question is the funding for the back soccer fields. I believe that component has the donation. The donations of 134,591 are for the back soccer field, not the phase 1 component. Is that correct?
Sorry, I'm just looking at the capital budget sheet. 1 second. Yeah, so this is all of the phase one. So the back soccer fields, that's another component that was approved as part of the 2020. I believe it was the 2020 capital budget. So it's a capital carry forward item.
Okay,
That includes the 20,000 that the Puslinch Minor Soccer Club has provided a commitment for.
okay.
And it also includes the Ontario Trillium Fund.
Okay, so the donations that show in here as 134,591. If is there a contingency if we can't come up with those donations, or that can't be realized?
I would recommend that should we be successful in the grant funding through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program,
Yeah.
Prior to entering into an agreement with the province and the federal government, we can provide council with what the current funding strategy is, and council can then direct staff as appropriate if we have not collected donations. Or
Okay,
there is still time. I guess that's what I'm just trying to say.
okay, fair enough. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Don't believe you need any further clarification, Ms. Hassan?
If I could, Mr. Chair, just on that one more. On the 20,000 from the soccer, has that been secured, or is this, and is the project, we're going ahead whether we get it or not, I guess. Is that right?
The soccer club did make a delegation to council, and they did indicate that they had a $20,000 commitment. Prior to executing the tender, we will work with the soccer club to ensure that that commitment is realized.
But if I don't know what their situation is, but if they aren't able to provide it immediately, we're not going to put the project in the back burner.
I believe, sorry, Ms. Hassan, if I may interject here. I believe at a previous council meeting, it was discussed that this project would go forward if they did not meet their contribution commitments. But there was also some discussion around, initially the project was much larger, and then they were gonna, have to contribute $80,000 or something
Right.
pretty high. And then once we kind of scaled the project down, we were wondering, well, is that amount of contribution appropriate? So I was pretty confident that there was discussion around this council that the project was gonna, the back soccer field component would still go forward, and we would just work with the soccer club. And Ms. Hassan, if you want to add to that, you may. Okay. Ms. Hassan, are you there?
So I guess similar to my answer to Councillor Goydo, like we still have time as it relates to this, but the amount that's noted in the budget relates to what Puslinch Minor Soccer Club had indicated that they would be able to commit to the project.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? All right. That looks good. I believe we're on to Mr. Fowler and the FADNA bleachers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You have the floor.
So with
I interrupted you and you stopped. Sorry. I lost you. Mr. Fowler, are you there?
yes, I am. Sorry, I thought you were talking to Councilor Sapoulis.
No, sorry. The floor is yours.
Sorry, it's a little crackly. So yeah, this is a pretty straightforward request. It was identified through our inspections that the 3-seat or the 3-tier bleachers at the soccer field are to the point where they have deteriorated, where it's basically unsafe for our spectators to sit on. It's also recommended that we replace both at the same time, and basically it's around $6,500. Take any questions from any councilors or yourself, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Sapoulis.
No questions. I support the project.
Councilor Bailey.
No, I support it. Any chance in trying to repurpose the bleachers that are there by cutting them down to just a bench for the far side of the soccer field for the players?
Mr.
Oh,
Fowler?
that's a possibility. That's a possibility that can be explored once we actually get down there and remove the old bleachers. Upon inspection, I'll have a better answer in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ballmer?
No questions.
Okay, Councillor Goda?
No questions, thank you.
All right. Ms. Hassan, can you capture that there was a question about the repurposing of the bleachers, please, in that direction? Mr. Feller may report back at a later time. Let's see what's next. So, Mr. Fowler, you are up again.
Sorry, can you just direct me on where we were at now, please?
Old Morrison ball diamond lighting replacement, and yeah, that's it.
Oh, the most important one.
In some people's minds.
So the old Morrison ball diamond lighting replacement, it was identified that due to the very poor condition of not only our light posts, but any underground conduit, main fuse panel, and the now unable to attend or obtain bulbs that are now used down there. It has been recommended that the old Morrison ball diamond lighting be replaced completely. And we are hoping for investing in Canada infrastructure program to help with the grant funding on this. I'll take any questions.
You, Councillor Spools.
I support the project, subject to grant funding. A question of our financial person, Mary, you have an indication where we stand on the funding?
So similar to the Parks Master Plan, Phase 1 and Phase 2 for the PCC Park, the province has been requesting additional information from the township in order to work with the federal government to potentially determine whether or not we would be successful as part of the grant funding. And so we are hoping to hear back hopefully by the end of the year as to whether or not we are successful.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hassan, do you know if this grant program was oversubscribed by the province nominating, or did they nominate only enough projects that there is funding available? Any chance?
I'm not aware if it's oversubscribed. They usually tell you that after they have told you that you're not successful.
Oh,
Yeah.
and another just quick question. When they were asking for additional information, when was that timeline? Was it recently, or was it at the beginning of the year? Or just curious if
I would say within the last month, they've been asking for additional information related to both projects.
And in your opinion, without getting into details on both the projects, the soccer and this one, were we able to satisfactorily supply that information in a beneficial way to the township, or was there some holes?
No, we've been able to provide it.
That's good news. Great, thank you. Where was I?
No problem.
Councillor Bailey.
No, I support this project and look forward to hearing if we get the grant.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, again, my question relates to the community-based, the grant from the community group, or the donation from the community group on this one. I recall we received a delegation from a traveling ladies team, or perhaps, or maybe that was at the Optimist Club. And we also received a delegation from Mr. Tuck and the former Citizen Bailey regarding baseball diamonds and maintenance. And I'm trying to, I can't remember what commitments they might have made regarding this 20,000. And the same question again, if we get the federal grant, would the proceeding be contingent on that amount, or they'd be allowed to raise it after the fact?
I'll maybe, I believe Mr. Fowler can speak to the traveling women's team original commitment to help, and if that transpired or not, and then I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Hassan.
Okay, yeah, through the delegation at council, pretty sure the individual's name was Jason Saker. He runs women's fast pitch team out of Burlington. He had originally indicated that some type of involvement, whether it be painting or just basically general labor help to help get the old Morrison washrooms back up and running. That was received and considered. Eventually, COVID hit, and the township continued on with its plans to rehabilitate old Morrison washrooms. This was completed in midsummer of 2020, and it was all done through Puslinch Public Works employees. So no outside help was asked or contributed, just due to the safety protocols of COVID-19. So we currently have the project completed, and we don't need any external help as far as labor-wise.
Just to add to those comments, my discussions with you, Mr. Fellers, you had every intention to ask for them to do some work around the facility. It was on your radar. Just because of COVID, you weren't able to do that.
Yes, that's correct. Needless to say, I have an endless supply of paintbrushes now because we didn't end up using them all.
So just the second part, if I could, Mr. Chair, the piece
Sure.
about, as you mentioned, there was a delegation from soccer or some information from soccer that they'd committed to providing something for the lights. I just can't remember receiving a similar commitment of $20,000 for I'm sorry, not soccer didn't commit to $20,000 for lights in Aberfoyle, but to the project. Can you refresh my memory on, did we receive a $20,000 commitment from minor ball here in the township for these lights?
Since we have one of the delegates sitting here, maybe Miss Bailey would recall the total.
I do remember Cam making a commitment. I can go back in the notes. I don't remember a total number, and I don't believe we've actually talked about that at our meetings. But I do know he did talk about trying to raise some money. We didn't, baseball did not happen. Puslinch minor ball did not happen because of COVID. So there's been no income there on that front.
I believe the amount was around the $5,000, 5K initial, minimum 5K, I guess is how I would word it. And the hope was to contribute more, but Ms. Hassan, I don't believe it was captured in the minutes, but maybe she could add some input to this.
So the funding strategy as noted in the capital budget sheet, it's based on the November 6, 2019 council meeting where it was noted that the project would be funded from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program funding and other third-party fundraising efforts. The amount noted in the capital budget sheet related to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, it's limited to what the program is allowing. I believe it's about 73%. And so the 20,500 was determined based on donations, and 34,000 is from the cash in lieu of Parkland Reserve. Similar to what I indicated about the Parks Master Plan and the other projects, if we are successful in obtaining the grant funding from the province and the federal government, as part of funding, we are required to enter into an agreement with the province. I can provide council with the financial implications and how this project is being funded, and council can direct staff as to what changes are required to the funding strategy.
Super, thank you so much.
Where are we? Councillor Goyda.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Okay. So I believe it's council comfortable with acknowledging that, if this grant funding comes through, that we want to support the project and we're not going to abandon that grant money. So we will have a community commitment of some fundraising, but we will not cancel the project if they don't meet that 20,000 exactly. We'll have the discussions. Council comfortable with that? Councilor Schools?
Yeah, the grant funding only amounts to 10% of the total cost. It'd be foolish to say no if we got 90% of the dollars. So we'll find some way to make it work.
Okay, Councilor Bailey?
Yeah.
Sorry, you're moving on my screen. Yeah, comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Councilor Ballmer
Yes, I support that.
and Councilor Goyda?
Yes, I support that as well.
Okay, and that's captured in the minutes? I don't know who's capturing minutes, is it Glenn or?
Well, if there's no changes from what's presented, I don't think it needs to be captured in the minutes. So I think council supports that, the way it's currently presented, right?
All right, well then I'm gonna ask then this because things are written in stone. Can we change it from 20,000 funding to a minimum of 5? That was the commitment from the ball. From, I'm just concerned, you know what, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it. I believe council is open-minded to the funding strategy and we'll make the project work along with the soccer. It's no different. Okay. What's next? Going through here. Mr. Fowler, now you're going to talk to us about a commercial kitchen.
Okay, so basically several years ago, we had a building condition assessment done. It was determined that in 2021, council consider a complete gut and remodel of our commercial kitchen at the PCC. This kitchen is currently showing a little bit of wear. It is original from 1983. The only upgrades we have made over time have been a couple of the appliances. I know the new gas stove is still in excellent shape, so that will be left. The appliances considered for replacement are our commercial dishwasher and also our commercial fridge. So 2 years ago, we replaced the bar fridge, so that is in no need of replacement. This will also entail the back, we'll say janitorial washroom to be remodeled, and a current space that's used as storage in the back be considered for, we'll say more of a work area, office area for the facility operator, as far as paperwork and log keeping, and also additional storage. So I'm open to any questions from you, Mr. Mayor or Council.
Mr. Fowler, Councilor Schools,
I support the project. I have no questions.
Councilor Bailey,
Yeah, I support the project. I do have a question about the dishwasher replacement. Is there any way to sell that, or can it be donated to a local community center that could use it? Is there a plan for it?
I will look into that and get back to you. I'm not sure at this time if any successful contractor or vendor that supplies the appliances will want that as part of a trade-in, or so I will report back once I have better knowledge of what council would like to proceed.
Okay, just wondered if the Badenoch Community Center could benefit from, a dishwasher or a different fridge if it's somewhere.
get the county to buy it.
Yep,
I got lots of money.
yeah.
I can say that I have faith in the dishwasher being found a new home. Unfortunately, our commercial fridge is destined for the scrapyard.
Okay, Councilor Ballmer.
Thank you. Just one clarification that I've tried to make on this item a few times is this is not the original kitchen from 1983. It was
Yeah,
completely redone back in the early 2000s. I believe it might have been around 2005, 2004 when the original one was 22 years old, something like that. It was provided, it was done by a professional cabinet maker here in the township. So I'm just, and the dishwasher was replaced around the same time as well. and the fridge was relocated. So I have no doubt it's run its life. But I guess, so we've made it almost another 20 years. Well, I guess I was thinking, are we replacing it because we think it's 40 years old, or are we replacing it because it needs to be replaced? But at the same time, I recognize that we couldn't pick a better time to replace it when the facility isn't operating, whether it's a year or two premature. If we wait until we're hopping with rentals, there's never a good time to turn away rentals. So I don't know if that changes your assessment of it, understanding that the kitchen is not the original one, and several of the appliances have been replaced since then. So just want to clarify that on the record.
Thank you, Councillor Bomer. And Councillor Goida, did we lose her?
No, I'm here. I just am a little waffling on my connection here. I just wanted to ask about some of the appliances in there. Are we finding that they're breaking down often and we're spending a lot of money maintaining them, or are they holding up relatively okay?
In my opinion, they've held up extremely well for the amount of use, we'll say, in good times that they endure. We've had the odd valve replacement or filter replacement for the dishwasher. There's always some type of maintenance required for a fridge, whether it be a Freon replacement or a condenser that goes. So overall, I would say we're not extremely burdened with heavy repair bills for these units, and I'm confident in seeing 5+ years of maintenance-free performance from a new set of appliances.
So I just want to, I don't necessarily have an issue with this, but I just for maybe discussion purposes, as someone, I've worked, this is an industry that I'm fairly familiar with. So I've worked in several commercial kitchens, and this past, about a year ago, I did have the opportunity to cater an event out of the PCC kitchen. And I have to say, it's a caterer's dream come true in there. It's in terms of the space, the equipment available, all the small wares. And I will say that it's dated, but it's still fully functional. And so I'm just, from a sort of maybe a business perspective, I'm wondering if this money may be better spent in what we call in the industry the front of the house, which ultimately is where the guest experience takes place, and it could drastically impact the saleability or the rentability of the space. And I'm only saying that because in terms of renting, renters don't necessarily care about whether the kitchen is super fancy, but they do want to spend their time and money on something that's pretty. So I'm wondering if it makes sense to, spend some of that money on what, we call in the industry as beautifying the actual banquet space. And I know this is a difficult year to talk about renting space when nobody's renting anything, but I guess it's just a different point of view that I'm wondering we should consider, considering that the equipment in that kitchen, for the most part, seems to be functioning really well.
Mr. Fowler, could you also speak, is there any plans in the future for some upkeep to the front of the house? I know we talked about ceiling tiles, and well, I know you did the flower beds there a few years ago for the entrance. It makes it look more appealing, but any other planned upgrades?
The only thing that has been presented to the asset management is replacement of lighting to all LED. HVAC, all those have been identified, have been completed. There currently is no plan moving forward as far as any type of floor rehabilitation or wall. I guess that would also go for ceiling tiles, or if we chose to one day actually drywall it in. So that is something that's up for discussion, and moving forward.
Yeah, I have to agree with Councillor Goyda that the kitchen has served us well and continues to serve us well. Pretty much everybody around this horseshoe has done some event there, but I view it similarly to an asset replacement. It's met its life cycle, and I encourage putting some of our money back into these community centers. But I do agree with you, Councillor Goyda. It does work well. Mr. Fowler, we do have some challenges with late night service calls due to the dishwasher. Is it going to be the same style of dishwasher that's going to be problematic for operators, that we're going to be sending out employees, or are we going to be able to address that issue?
I'm confident that whatever design or type of dishwasher that is replaced in the kitchen will be fine. A couple of the challenges we've had in the past have been cultural and language barriers as far as reading the instructions on how to operate the dishwasher. So majority of the renters are able to navigate the instructions and are successful in washing the dishes at the end of the night.
Okay.
One
any
comment, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Sure, absolutely.
Just you use something that was sort of related to what I was talking about, is life cycle, and thinking about what Councillor Goyda has said. Again, are we doing it because we think it's 40 years old, or is there actually a problem that we're trying to fix? That's because I did speak to the company that installed it however many years ago, and they said they'd be willing to come back, and if it needs some tweaking up or tuning up of the cabinets, they're still in business here in the township, and they'd be glad to come back and have a look at it if you wanted to keep that piece going and spend some of the money elsewhere.
I would like to say this isn't just a kitchen reno. It is the washroom, it's the storage room, so it's essentially the back half of the building. Is that correct, Mr. Fowler?
Yes, that would be the scope of the work.
And can you, for the councillors, can you explain why you feel these cabinets need replaced or finished, or is that a possibility? The scope of the work is, the new appliances you have identified, redo the washroom, redo the storage room, and then it's refinish the cabinets versus complete replace?
I would say it's some of the work has been identified through our asset management plan. Some of the work has been identified just from currently the commercial fridge is not operational. Fortunate enough, it kind of blew up while we were in COVID, so we haven't had any problems with not providing a fridge. If we ever get to the stage of reopening, that will have to be the first thing considered, is a new fridge replacement, because the current one is currently unoperational. As far as the cabinets go, they're in relatively decent shape. They are made from melamine wood, which is, they're not solid wood. They have chips, they have cracks. The way of the design of the kitchen is that the serving carts are meant to slide underneath the counters. That was a design at least 20 years old, and we currently cannot find serving carts that now fit underneath the cabinets. So in order for the serving carts to be tucked out of the way with dishes on them, we currently have to store them outside, out of their proper place in a corner. So, and also the countertops. The countertops are all a laminate design. Corners are cracked, corners are peeled. There's some burn marks, stain marks. It's just, it did a wonderful job for the amount of time it's been abused, we'll say. So I think a recommendation of proper hard surface countertops, and possibly, we'll say, a facelift to the existing cabinetry would be fine. That's something that hasn't been explored yet. It'll have to, whatever council recommends is the direction I'll take as far as proceeding with the actual cabinetry. But other than that, I think you can get another 5 years out of it. I have received complaints from some renters, and actually from one service group that does utilize the kitchen, that they feel the township should be investing more in the back kitchen. So that's the reasoning behind the consideration for the renovation.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Appreciate that. If I could, Mr. Chair, just
Sure.
you made an interesting point there. Is the decision to rent it or not is made by, you know, the people who visit it the day, not the people who sometimes come and attend the event, who may only see the hall but not the kitchen. And you're right, the kitchen is part of what people see when they choose to rent it. And so you're right, the aesthetics of that and the functionality, especially, I didn't realize those service carts weren't fitting in the place where they were designed to go. So you've identified some functional improvements that need to be made beyond just some minor adjustments or making new doors or something like that. So thank you for that.
Okay, any further questions in regards to Councillor Goyda's comments or Mr. Fowler's? Councillor Bailey? No? Oh,
Yeah, not in response to Councillor Goyda's, but I did have a question whether there would be a drinking water tap when the sink and, what does it say, what water saving devices, if that was taken into consideration.
That can be explored until we actually compile a list of necessities and what has to be replaced. But that can be considered moving forward.
I'd like to add that to the list if that's possible.
sure can. Well, we'll see. Is council comfortable with adding that to the list? Just a shake of the heads, and Matthew, you can just, I'm comfortable with it. Yeah. Just currently, well, that might pose some challenges, Councillor Bailey, because all of the water is softened in the facility, but at least Mr. Fowler can do it for you. Okay, so appreciate Councillor Goyda's comments. I'm just looking for direction if we're comfortable supporting the as recommended in the capital budget. If there isn't, then I would look for direction from somebody to make a recommendation to change it. I'm supportive of it. I'm comfortable. Mr. Fowler has heard our concerns about maybe there is some savings with refinishing of maybe the top cabinets, or but I'll leave. I feel we can leave it with him, and he'll do the best he can for that facility. Everybody comfortable? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Mayor Sealy, can I just summarize what I heard about that one, just so that we can ensure that the direction is in the minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay. So council directed staff to determine the following for the PCC kitchen washroom renovation. One item I heard was whether the dishwasher could be donated to another organization. Another item I heard was, could the new kitchen incorporate a drinking water fountain? And I believe the last item I heard was whether the current cabinets could be refinished rather than replaced with new.
I believe that was what wanted to be investigated. I don't see anybody speaking outside of that.
Well, if I could, Mr. J, refinishing them may be false economy if the cabinets start to go behind them from abuse. You know, this is,
Yeah.
you know, we've got at least 15 years at them, if not more already. So.
All right, maybe remove that part, Ms. Hassan.
Okay.
Councillor Goyda?
I just wanted to perhaps ask if the dishwasher, you know, if you think maybe we could get another 5 years out of that dishwasher, could we not explore possibly saving some cost there in doing so? And if there is some extra money left over, putting that towards something like the ceiling tiles in the front?
Yes, I've noted that.
Councillor Goyda, just to, sorry, you were cutting out, Councillor Goyda. So you wanted to know whether we could keep the dishwasher and utilize that funding for ceiling tiles?
Yes, or some other item that may be required in the actual banquet facility.
And by banquet facility, she means the room where you eat your dinner.
Sorry, thank you.
I'm just clarifying because of Councillor Spillis.
I like to suggest that staff know what they're doing with respect to dishwasher and keep it in. I certainly understand Councillor Goyda's desires to make the place more attractive, perhaps that could be looked at in parallel as a separate undertaking for our budget.
I like your direction, Councillor Spoulos. Not to undermine you, Councillor Goida, but you know, we've been down that road where you don't replace everything and then one breaks down. And maybe we can sell it to somebody or donate it to
That's
Bad
fine.
Hand. Okay. And I like Councillor Spoulos' direction that maybe get staff to come back with some proposals for the front of the house. I like that. I like that term.
Sure, as part of this budget cycle.
Yeah, if they could report back on just some recommendations for the banquet hall to just make it a little more modern and clean looking. The ceiling tiles are old. Is everybody comfortable with that? Councillor Ballmer, are you okay with that? You don't have your video on, so I can't see a head nod.
Well, that makes sense. I can remember when we used to repaint ceiling tiles and the T-bar in between. So I expect they maybe due for. They've only been probably replaced once since the place was built.
Mhm. And they sustained some damage from some of the renters too. They put up makeshift barriers, so they tape things to them and anchor them, and they get damaged. So, Councillor Spoulos?
Yeah, as part of the replacement of the lighting fixtures, it might be the opportunity to do the ceiling at the same time. So that's a suggestion the staff could look at.
Okay. Councillor Bailey?
I just had a question about the replacement of the lights. I think it's scheduled for next year. Now maybe this, what I was originally going to ask is it not any benefit to bumping it up a year and then having the cost savings and the energy that we're saving? Maybe if we're going to be doing some ceiling replacement, it's not the time, but can we just talk about moving bulb replacement LED up?
Who wants to tackle that one? Who's a bulb expert and how much we're going to save? I personally would rather leave it a year out. We're in challenging times right now, Ms. Councillor Bailey. And then it would give staff an opportunity to combine the two projects. We move up the lights, then we have to move up the ceiling tiles, or that's our intention. And it's not being rented right now, so really the light should be off all the time. And it probably won't be rented for at least another 6-7 months. So that's just kind of thinking off the top of my head. So I prefer to just leave it out. Councillor Spoulos, what are you saying on that?
I'm fine with what you're suggesting, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Palmer,
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Councillor Goida.
Sorry, I'm good with that as well.
Yeah, Councillor Bailey, I like your thought process is do something sooner and save some money. In normal times, I think that might have been more palatable, but the lights are off all the time, and I'd really like to see those ceiling tiles replaced because it would just boost it up so much better. Okay, so back to direction. Ms. Hassan, can you just give a summary of the direction for this project, please?
Yeah, so council directed staff to determine the following for the PCC kitchen washroom renovation: whether the dishwasher can remain and whether the new kitchen could incorporate a drinking water fountain. Council directed staff to provide a proposal to modernize the banquet facilities of the PCC as part of the 2021 budget process. For example, to modernize the front end of the facility, ceiling tiles, etc.
Sounds good to me. Councillor Spoulos?
I thought we agreed to replace the dishwasher and at
Yes.
the same time and move in parallel with reviewing the upfront.
Yes, you're right. Sorry, Ms. Hassan. It's the status. Yes, all the appliances that were identified are going to be replaced. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'll just delete that.
Yep, thank you. All right, everyone, we're good. All right, okay, next is Mr. Fowler, and he is talking about a bridge and culvert inspections. After this one, I'm going to
Okay.
call, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Fowler.
No, I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
After that we deal with this one, we're going to take a 5, maybe 10-minute dewatering break. I have a copy that needs to be disposed of. And so wait, the floor is yours.
Okay. 2021 bridge and culvert inspections. This is This is an inspection that's done on our infrastructure, which consists of our bridges and culverts. The culvert diameter is 400 millimeters or larger. So this encases our larger culverts that are more prone for failure than culverts under the 400 millimeter diameter size. So not every culvert is identified in this inspection report. The smaller the diameter, it's more or less left to Public Works to determine if the culvert is still operable or needs to be replaced. So this is done through GM Blue Plan, our engineering firm. It's done every 2 years, and basically reports come in within a month after inspection, and this report is then utilized in our asset management plan in providing updates and planning for infrastructure improvements moving forward in the budget years. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. This appears to be another one of those ones that is regular maintenance scheduled that maybe staff could just look at and incorporate it into normal operations and carry on. I just don't feel that we need to scrutinize this personally, but not that we're going to scrutinize it, but we don't need to review it. Councillor Spools.
I support the project. It's got to be done by a third party. We don't have the expertise to do it internally.
I agree. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, no questions. I support this.
Okay. Councillor Balmer.
No questions.
Okay. Councillor Goida.
No questions.
And I have no questions. That one's good to go. Pickup truck director, Mr. Fowler. Pretty straightforward.
Identified. So the pickup truck director half-ton pickup. It is a 2015 truck with a 5-year life cycle. This is identified in the asset management plan. The plan is to not get rid of this truck, but to transfer it over to our parks department. It will be utilized to pull our lawnmower around along with our cargo trailer. And then the existing parks truck, which is a 2012, also half-ton, will be retired and sent to auction. The new pickup truck that will replace this, the verbiage will be changed just as a pickup truck, Public Works. It will not have the director name attached to it, as this truck will not be required to travel to and from any type of home. I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Councillor Spools.
No, thank you for making this truck a generic public works truck. I was concerned whether it was going to be a personal vehicle, and you answered my questions. I'm fine. It's an asset that has to be replaced, and you're transferring it over, making more use of the truck. I'm fine. I support the project.
Okay, Councillor Bailey.
So the new truck that's being purchased, is it doing a lot of heavy duty type work, or what's going to be its designated use?
It will basically be required to fulfill Public Works' needs, which is anything from transporting cold mix for potholes to road closed signs, barricades, any type of tools for forestry. So yeah, it will be more of a pickup truck designed for work than pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Balmer.
Thank you. No questions.
Councillor Goida.
No questions. Thanks.
Mr. Fowler, you will still have at your disposal once you arrive to work a dedicated pickup truck for your use. They're not, the Public Works guys are not going to use your truck for pothole repair, and then you're left standing there without a vehicle.
Yeah. Hopefully, I can come to an arrangement with my guys that we can divvy up duties with the current pickup trucks we do have. If I know I'm required to be in the office for a while, then of course an employee can take it for a job-related duty. Unfortunately, I do need a pickup truck available for any type of on-site meetings or meeting with residents, because Lynch currently doesn't have a transit system.
I'll work on that for you, Mr. Fowler, so you can take the bus to your meetings.
Thank you.
I think the question line Councillor Bailey was kind of alluding to is a half ton a heavy enough spec for the use? How much towing is this truck going to be doing? Is it going to be hauling around a scissor lift that's, you know, heavy with a heavy duty trailer?
What we currently have in the 2015 model is it's technically a cab and a half with a 5.5 foot box. My preference will be to explore the option of obtaining a 3/4 ton single cab with an 8 foot box. By obtaining a 3/4 ton, we stay within our CVOR as far as pulling any type of trailer. This truck can also be utilized for pulling the chipper if needed for forestry operations. So I feel Public Works would much better benefit from an 8 foot box for storage and hauling tools than for a cab and a half. So a single cab will still transport 2 employees, obviously with mass, safely. And I feel this is a better direction to pursue.
Okay, so we're replacing the half ton pickup truck with a truck that's suitable to your needs, not specifically another half ton truck. So that's up to your discretion. You're going to try and make it work within the allotted budget.
That's correct. Hopefully I can obtain a favorable price for a 3/4 ton.
Okay, well, that brings to mind, the county went to tender. They go to tender much earlier than us, and they're purchasing 6 Chevy 3/4 ton pickup trucks, and from Barry Cullen and Guelph, and they got a price of it was under 47,000. It was 40. I don't want to quote it, but between 42 and 45,000 for a 3/4 ton pickup. I thought that was a really good price for essentially a commercial truck. And I was looking at this at 40,000 for a half ton. I know you and I have spoke of this, Mike, that the tendering processes don't align. Is there any opportunity for you to reach out to the county and, you know, maybe we could piggyback on their process? Or maybe I should be asking Mr. Schwendinger and Ms. Hassan, because I guess this has to go through the tendering process. How could we piggyback on the county purchasing power on a short notice if this part of the budget's approved?
We'd have to check with the timing of the county to see if they could still accommodate in addition to the tender, and if the supplier is willing to extend that pricing to another unit. Process-wise, I think what we would need, and our treasurer could maybe speak to this better than I, but I believe you need to grant or pass a resolution giving formal pre-budget approval for the purchase of that unit to allow that. Otherwise, it would have to wait until final budget approval. Mary, maybe you could speak to that.
Yes, so council has provided pre-budget approvals for these types of equipment purchases in the past. So if that's council's direction, then we can incorporate that in the minutes.
I'd like to, I'll let Councillor Spillis speak first.
I'd like to move the motion as you're suggesting, Mr. Mayor, is that we ask staff to investigate piggybacking on the current 3/4 ton order. And if it is possible that the council gives pre-approval to purchase such truck.
It's worth looking into to see if the specs are what Mr. Fowler would require for his guys and gals. You know, I think it's worth investigating. Can I get a seconder for Councillor Spillis' motion, please? So we can discuss.
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Bummer, awesome. So comments on that, just Councillor Spillis' motion to investigate the county purchasing power for this pickup truck. Councillor Bailey.
No, I definitely agree with that. That was a question I had anyway about how we could get in with purchasing with another municipality or with the county. So support that for sure.
Okay, Councillor Bummer.
Pitter patter, sounds like a good idea.
Okay, Councillor Goyda.
I agree.
So that's all in favor. Everybody just nod.
Yep.
Good. Yeah.
In
I
favor.
agree. Yeah.
Favor.
Awesome. Maybe in the future we need to look at the ways to align our tendering process in line with the county seems to have pretty good purchasing power. so that we don't have to burden our staff with, preparing pre-budget approvals, and maybe we can, but right now we obviously don't have that luxury, but I'd like to look at that in the future, maybe changing that. But now, in saying that, I talked to Mr. Fowler about this briefly. He feels the county does their budget process in August, and I'm not advocating for budget process in August. So I'll leave it with Mr. Schwendinger, put on his lengthy list that we add to all the time, that we can possibly streamline that with county purchasing. Yeah,
Sorry, Mayor Sealy, can I just ask one question?
absolutely. And then you can give us a summary of what you have captured, please.
Okay, so the capital budget sheet as presented on page 42 indicates a half-ton pickup truck. What I've heard from council is that council wants it to be changed from a half-ton to a quarter-ton? I mean, quarter-ton? Okay.
Correct.
So what I've noted is that council directs staff to determine whether a 3/4 ton pickup truck can be purchased jointly with the county, and council's authorized a pre-budget approval of a 3/4 pickup truck, 3/4 ton pickup truck.
Are we giving the pre-budget approval already? I mean, I think we need to give some discretion to the CAO, Mr. Fowler, if it's a good purchase point, a few phone calls. I honestly, when I saw the purchase price, it's in the roads committee meeting from the county last month. I thought it was an exceptionally good price for a 3/4 ton truck. Now it may end up being a crew cab, but it was under $45,000. So it's basically an approval of $5,000 more than what we have on this budget sheet. So it ends up being more. So that's the trouble. Councilor Lewis, do you have any comments on that?
The way I look at it, if staff need a 3/4 truck, and they're going to try to get one, I don't think they'll get one for under $40,000 unless it's used. So if staff are saying that it's a better business case to get a 3/4 ton truck, then I support going ahead and increasing the base budget to accommodate this.
Okay, Councilor Bailey.
Sure.
Okay, Councilor Bowman.
Yeah, the way I interpreted the direction we gave was enabling staff to determine which was the best way to move ahead, and move ahead in the best way they find. Whether it's if they can get it for the price they put in the budget for the 3/4 ton, or if it's the price the county gets, it's whichever is the best price. We're pre-authorizing them to purchase a 3/4 ton truck at the best price they can find.
Mhm.
I agree with that. City Councilor Guetta.
I agree with that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Mr. Fowler might find a regular cab, 3/4 ton that fits the budget needs, and I'm comfortable giving the staff the discretion to purchase the appropriate pickup truck. So, Ms. Hassan, if you could give us a quick summary again of.
Yeah, so council directed staff to determine whether a 3/4 ton pickup truck can be purchased jointly with the county, and council authorized the pre-budget approval of a 3/4 ton pickup truck at the best price possible through joint purchasing with the county.
Everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah, or not, if there's not an option through the county.
Yeah, maybe just in terms of the wording of the pre-budget authorization, perhaps it's too late to join the county. We may be able to, maybe not, but maybe just give pre-budget approval to purchase the truck. And then maybe it might be, for example, with another of the lower tier municipalities, if they're putting out a tender, just so that we have authority to go ahead and purchase it. We'll try with the county, if not with somebody else, but we have pre-budget approval to commence the purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ms. Hassan, you captured that?
As long as the resolution contains the words pitter patter, let's get at her.
Can we quote you?
100%. Okay. Ms. Hassan, are you there? Did you capture
Yeah,
it?
so council directed staff to determine whether a 3/4 ton pickup truck can be purchased jointly with the county or other lower tier municipalities, and has provided a pre-budget approval for this, right?
Comfortable?
Pitter patter.
Pitter patter, get at her. Let's get at her. Okay.
So do we have a mover and seconder for that?
Can we, I had John and Matthew, well, they've changed the wording slightly. Councillor Willis, you were the mover initially,
I accept the friendly amendments as noted.
and Councillor Bummer.
I support the same.
Okay, all in favor, Councillor, where do we start? Spoulos,
In favor?
Councillor Bailey,
In favor?
Councillor Bummer,
In favor.
Councillor Goida,
In favor.
and I'm in favor. That's carried. Before we go on, I'm going to call a 7-minute to 10-minute recess for dewatering. Councillor Spoulos,
Here?
Councillor Bailey,
Here.
Councillor Bummer,
Present.
and Councillor Goida.
Present.
And I am here. And Mr. Fowler, has he returned? So I guess I should have checked him first. Yeah. Maybe I'm a little premature. He's probably having some respiratory therapy.
Present.
There he is. All right, looks like you're still in the hot seat, Mr. Fowler. Believe we're on to concession 4, County Road 32, Side Road 12, Side Road 10 North, asset number 56, pulverize and repave. Unless, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the next one.
Okay.
You're up.
So this section of road has been identified for pulverized repave, not only through the asset management, but unfortunately due to the terrain that this road transverses, it's basically swamp. So in saying that, I'll refer back to the boring topic of sub-base remedial work, which is basically identified in this section of road that due to the added costs of sub-base rework, which will include bringing the road up slightly, increasing the depths, along with a geofabric installation on 0.1 kilometers through our worst spots. It is both Public Works' and GM's Blue Plan's opinion that this will benefit as far as increasing the longevity for this section of road once complete. I'm open to any questions from Councilor or the Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Spoulos.
I support the project.
Yeah, Councillor Bailey,
Yeah, I support it. If it's been identified as a need, then go for it.
Councillor Bummer,
No questions.
Councillor Goida.
No questions.
I have no questions either. Next one, McLean Road West, pulverize and repave. Mr. Fowler.
McLean Road West was identified through our asset management plan with a PCI of 62. This is probably one of the busiest roads within our township, not only for residential traffic, but up to 400 commercial trucks a day. This is currently a 2-lift road, which requires, again, pulverize and pave, with one culvert identified while we're doing the work, is due for replacement. The initial cost was increased due to the fact of the work window identified to do this project is very narrow. It is recommended that council consider this work to be done on the weekend. By allowing this work to be done on the weekend, it will increase costs due to contractor overtime hours, but in the meantime, it will cut down our traffic volumes by 85%. So we'll end up with a much more successful job and product when we try to do this paving work on days where we won't have a huge amount of heavy vehicular traffic. I'm open to any questions if needed.
Mr. Fowler, do you have an idea of how much that additional cost is for the weekend work for this project?
Not offhand. again, it's a safe estimate of probably 30 to 35,000 possibly.
It'd be nice to track that cost because there's times we have to justify the aggregate levy and the cost to repair the roads, and that's specifically a cost we would incur just to keep the aggregate industry operational through the week. So staff, if we could document this project and the additional costs, that would be great for future reference. Councillor Spoulos.
I support the project. I have a little bit of concern about doing it on weekends as opposed to during the work week type of thing. Other municipalities don't have a problem doing this sort of work. I'm just wondering why the concern is ours. Why are we so concerned as much? The section of roadway you're talking about, can the road not be traffic re-detoured around the construction for that section of roadway to accommodate work during the regular work week?
That is a possibility that can be explored. I will have to work with GM Blue Plan and probably the county to establish a detour route through Aberfoyle down 34 and basically back up concession 7. It still limits our ability to properly pave a road into the Kerr Crescent Industrial Park, where there is only one way in, one way out. In the past, we like to always keep one lane of traffic open with traffic control flag people. I find with this, the backup alone, with just the volume of traffic, will easily back up onto Brock Road at McLean Road. We have more of a cushion with traffic backing up over concession 7. It will be a definite challenge for whatever successful contractor wins this tender to provide a constant traffic flow. Usually a cooling time that's preferred for when laying fresh asphalt is an hour before any type of traffic A, drives on it, or B, has any type of turning motion on it. I would hate to jeopardize the amount of money spent just to keep a lane of traffic open, especially when we're considering heavy commercial traffic.
Okay. So I'll reword it as a suggestion to see if there's any way of reducing the cost by concerting alternative ways of detouring, and leave it at that.
Okay, and just for a side note, Mr. Sapoulis, the last time we paved was an aggregate road that is just as heavily used as this was concession 2. It was performed by Capital Paving, and it was also done on a Saturday.
Okay.
So that's where I get it.
That's fine. Okay, so I'll withdraw my comments then.
Okay, Councillor Bailey.
No, I don't have any questions about it. Just want to make sure we have the proper notice put out, make sure it doesn't affect any of the businesses.
Thank you. Councillor Balmer.
Thank you. No questions?
Councillor Guida.
No questions.
Okay. Ms. Hassan, if you could just give a summary. I guess nothing has changed. Councillor Spoulos, you removed your comment?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so it should be as it is in the agenda.
Mayor Seeley, I just heard a couple of things that maybe it needs to be deleted, but council directed staff to document the additional costs associated with the McLean Road, West County Road 46, concession 7 project related to the overtime costs for the workers, and that appropriate notice is provided to ensure businesses are not impacted by the construction.
That is correct. Those two. Okay. Public Works. Now it's McLean Road East. Mr. Fowler.
Again, this is just an extension. This was a last-minute addition when additional funds were identified. This is currently a Class 3 road. Back when it was constructed, it was intended to have a 2-lift asphalt put on it. For one reason or another, only the initial base coat was applied and left. So basically, we've gotten close to 15 years out of just a base coat within a heavily industrial area. So this will entail pulverizing this one base coat and reestablishing a base coat with a top coat as a finished product. The length will be from Brock Road to Weiner. There's no anticipated culvert replacement, and I'm open to any questions from council.
Councilor Spoulos,
No questions.
Councilor Bailey. No questions. Councilor Balmer,
No question.
Councilor Goida.
No questions.
I have no questions. Fox Run Drive Stormwater Management Facility, Mr. Fowler.
This was identified 2 years ago within our storm pond management inspections. Remedial work identified is a fairly simple task of just removing accumulated silt, any heavy weed growth, cattails, phragmites, type of vegetation like that, and any type of culvert cleaning. And yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Once the soil testing is completed, we'll have a general idea as far as the scope of work that is actually required. This testing will be completed through our engineering firm, GM Blue Plan. I'm open to any other questions.
Thank you, Councilor Spoulos.
I support the project. Just a question of the testing. Will the testing be done this year so we can adjust the budget, or will it be done next year?
Testing will be done this year with
Oh.
an expected completion date then set after that.
Okay, so then we might have a chance to, it'll be incorporated in the revised budget coming November then.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Bailey.
How often is this project needing to be repeated?
When it comes to storm pond management, we do our inspections on every 3 years. That usually gives us enough time for any additional weed growth and any type of drainage or we'll say clogging issues within the drains. Usually remedial work like this will last or give you an end result that's up to 20 years worth of reliability.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Balmer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't got the printout in front of me, but this is separate from the Carroll Pond inspection. It's a separate sheet, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks. No questions on
No questions. Was there any direction given there? I don't believe there was, Ms. Hassan.
No, I didn't know any direction.
Next one is the one Mr. Balmer is waiting on. Carroll Pond. Mr. Fowler.
So this is probably one of our most important infrastructure stormwater ponds within the township. The last time we did a closed circuit television inspection was back, well, 9 years ago now. It's due again. It was indicated through GM Blue Plan through our inspections 2 years ago that regarding the maintenance of this drain, just another inspection as far as vegetation growth and also a sediment study, which involves sediment accumulation and water flow through each individual cell of Carroll Pond. I'm open to any questions from council.
Councilor Spoulos.
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilor Bailey.
No, no questions.
Councilor Balmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Just maybe one question on this. Do we have any, I know when we built this, there was a cost sharing agreement for the building of it with the county. Do we have any cost sharing agreement with them regarding the maintenance since we share the benefits of the industrial parks that it serves?
That I am not aware of, Mr. Ballmer. I can look into that. This was also a project that was completed before my time as a township. So as far as having a lot of history on whether it be an agreement or the construction, I still have some learning to do.
Okay, that'd be great. Just check into it because, you know, I seem to recall we had some discussions. I don't remember if we agreed to anything, but, you know, we both benefit. And I thought maybe we can share the costs. I know we both take care of our own roads in the area that serves the industrial park, but if they'd be willing to at least share the costs as they did with the building, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay. And Councillor Goyda.
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. And Ms. Hassan, you captured Councillor Ballmer's request.
Yeah, council directed staff to determine whether the township has a cost sharing agreement with the county of Wellington regarding the Carroll Pond municipal drain for the for the maintenance of the drain.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Gilmore Road culvert, Mr. Fowler.
This is the first step in the completion of replacing Gilmore Road culvert. The culvert has been identified as been needing replacement for several years now. After investigations were done, it was determined that some of the culvert on either side of the road is sitting on private property. The township now must consider the fact of property acquisition for a proper replacement of this culvert. So what's being proposed for 2021 is proper survey and engineering work be done through our engineering firm GM Blue Plan to determine a more approximate cost of replacement and the amount of property that needs to be acquired. I'm open to any other questions.
Thank you. Councillor Spoulos.
Are you using a corrugated steel pipe for the replacement?
In discussions with GM Blue Plan, they are recommending a CSP pipe be replaced with another CSP pipe due to the span of the creek and the depth in which this culvert is buried. It is their recommendation that CSP be used, and it is also up for debate on if high density plastic pipe can be utilized in this situation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I assume we're also taking into consideration sort of projected growth traffic along here when we're replacing it. Are we sort of beefing it up a little bit as well?
Initial, we'll say improvements that are being considered are actually bringing the road up a bit from the current elevation that currently sits in the gully. Improvements made to the west to improve the hill and drainage that are currently causing maintenance problems for public works. And that is all that has been identified at this point.
What width? Will it be wider to, if say Gilmore is paved in our foreseeable future? Will it accommodate going to Portland standard of road width?
Currently, no, it will not. Our right of way through there will not meet our current standard for road platform width. So for us to meet that current standard, there would have to be consideration for the entire stretch for private property acquisition.
Councillor Ballmer.
No questions. Thank you.
Councillor Goya.
Quick question, the $40,000 that's being budgeted here, is this strictly for the engineering and the surveying, or is this also including anticipated land acquisition?
This would just entail a detailed survey and all administration and engineering work. So there's no property acquisition or construction costs related to this. This will be presented in the 2022 capital budget.
Okay, but we're hopeful that the $500,000 that is written in here, that would include, hopefully, I mean, I know you don't know it until we get the surveying done, but that would also include the land acquisition?
Yes, it's assumed through our engineering department, our firm, that will encompass all engineering costs for that year, construction costs, and the property acquisition only for each end of the culvert.
Okay, thank you. I have no other question.
Okay, Councillor Bailey, did you have another one? I kind of cut you short. No, okay. All right. Ms. Hassan, can you give us a summary of what you captured? If there wasn't really any changes, I don't believe.
No, there were just clarification questions, so I didn't capture any direction.
Okay. All right. What's that? Mr. Fowler, your storm water management pond inspections.
Okay, we're within the second year since our last inspection. Basically, this will entail a member of Public Works and a member from GM Blue Plan going out and boots on the ground inspecting each stormwater pond, documenting any deficiencies, documenting any emergencies, and we will also be documenting vegetation growth since the last time it was inspected. Basically, it's a fairly straightforward project. And then again, just like the OSIM report, this will be reflected in planning for our asset management and future capital projects.
Okay. Councillor
I'll
Spillis?
take any questions.
Councillor Spillis?
No questions.
Councillor Bailey? Councillor Balmer?
No questions.
Councillor Goida?
No questions.
Easy one. Okay, where are we at now? This is another storm sewer inspections and cleaning. Mr. Fowler?
Through our asset management, it is recommended that we undertake annual storm sewer cleaning and inspections. The last time this was done, I would say it was probably about 3 years ago. We don't have a lot of underground infrastructure as far as storm sewers. Majority is in our built-up areas, whether it be the villages or subdivisions. And usually it just entails a vac sucker truck being contracted out to come in, clean our laterals and clean our catch basin sumps, which are usually filled with either sediment or winter sand. I'm open to any questions.
Sorry, just for some clarification, Mr. Fowler, the asset management plan identifies this needs to be or should be completed annually.
Yes, they really recommend annually. There's also the consideration that it kind of ties in with our winter maintenance projects or winter maintenance change of material use, where the blue salt is being utilized a little more now than just straight sand. This should cut down on our winter sand ending up being washed into the catch basins, where the salt will just melt and basically dissipate. So I don't expect to do these yearly. I think it's safe to go on a 2 to 3 year inspection cycle.
Okay, that's what, if we were going to be doing it annually, then I would have been requesting that this be a base budget increase and just be inclusive annually. But if we're going to go every 2 or 3 years, just to try and get it off the tax levy. But anyways, Councillor Spillis.
No questions.
Councillor Bailey.
No questions.
Councillor Bummer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed that we have some of these in, I think there's a few in Arkle, and I think there's some on Watson Road and some on Arkle Road. Is the county responsible for the ones on county roads and we're responsible for the ones on township roads, or are we responsible for all the sewers under all the roads?
As far as I'm aware, we look after our roads and the county will look after their roads.
Okay, so I maybe have a misperception of where they are in Arkell. I'm trying to think if they're connected together underground but they take it in separately above. How do we divide it? Is it divided by the property line?
That would have to be a question I'd have to direct to one of the engineering managers with the county. I would assume if it's on our road, I would be responsible for cleaning that said catch basin. If any laterals were to be plugged, I would be approaching the county to see if they could help out with cleaning. They tend to have a little more equipment available to help out in situations like this.
I maybe Councillor Goyda would be probably much more familiar with Arkell than I am. But if there are some in Arkell, do you know where they drain to?
At this current time, no, I don't. I would have to look into that. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
thanks.
update regularly on county infrastructure.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Goyda.
I have no questions, and Councillor Balmer, I know where the grates are, where they take it in, but I don't know where they drain it to.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, Councillor Goyda, am I correct? There's one on Watson Road, which is the township road, and there's others on Arkell Road, which is the county road. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
So that'd be an interesting thing to figure out. I think they're on each side of.
Yep.
There's a lovely little restaurant in Arkell. I think there's one on each side. So be interested to know who's responsible.
I
for them.
believe there is actually 2 on Arkell Road, and only one that I know of on Watson Road.
Yeah.
From my understanding of it, we would do Watson Road south of Arkell, right? Because that's ours, and they're not really putting much concern on where they connect and where the flow goes. And if that's the case, it's good for us because the county will maybe look after the lateral. So, and I believe it goes back to your initial comment, Councillor Bulmer, is the property line. So,
Thank you,
if that
Mr.
helps.
Chair.
Any further comments on that? No? Okay, so Mr. Fowler. Ms. Hassan, I don't believe there's just comments for clarification, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if council is directing staff to determine where the storm sewers on Arkell Road and Watson Road drain to. Is that the direction?
No, just a point of interest. I've often wondered, I've seen them and I wondered where the water went.
Okay, so I have noted no direction then as part of that.
Thank you. All right, and now Mr. Fowler, Hume Road Railway crossing upgrades.
So the Hume Road Railway crossing upgrades, it was identified through Guelph Junction Rail, which owned the line, that they were interested in pursuing upgrading Hume Road. The upgrade would include actually raising the crossing a bit, replacement of new rail, and a new asphalt apron, and also to begin the process of signalizing, basically warning bells for that crossing. Their first step for 2021 will be underground conduit, and they plan on installing signals in the 2022 year. So under our obligation with Guelph Junction Railway, because it's our road, and the Federal Railway Act indicates that the neighboring municipality is responsible for 50% of the cost. It is established that around $80,000 is requested for the completion of this work. I'll answer any questions if needed.
Councillor Spoulos.
This railway, isn't this the railway owned by City of Guelph?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would ask you to look into whether or not the Transportation Act you're looking at applies to municipally owned railway companies. I know it applies to federally owned railway companies. I know it applies to municipally owned railway companies.
This act encompasses all railways within Canada through Transport Canada, whether it be federal, provincial, or municipal. It's all under the same umbrella. in discussions with the general manager from Guelph Junction, he's very good at explaining that, you know, he has the final say, basically.
Okay, all right.
Do you think, Ms. Councillor Spools, do you think there's a letter in order to City of Guelph and our MP expressing our concerns with the cost of this crossing?
I find that it's not a federally owned railway, and I thought the Canadian Transportation statutes applied to federal railway companies. And I don't know if this Guelph company is under the considered federal railway company or not. That's my question. And certainly I agree with you on the costing of this. We can ask the City of Guelph to request a relief on the cost.
I would like to at least ask them. I mean, they're running this as a for-profit operation as our municipal neighbor, and you know, they have a lot of benefits coming out of this. Maybe they could do the right thing here. And I mean, $80,000 isn't a lot of money to them if they could kick in another 40 for us. But so I'll go around the table for some more comments. Councillor Bailey.
I don't think it hurts to ask, so I'd be in favor of at least asking for a contribution toward it. Yeah.
Councillor Bulmer.
Yeah, I agree. It never doesn't hurt to ask. At the same time, living close to the railway, and Councillor Goyder does as well, we know how busy it is, and I certainly wouldn't want all that traffic as trucks coming through the township or on county roads. It would, so, but still, it doesn't hurt to ask. I agree. This may be the appropriate cost sharing at a federal level, but maybe this is an opportunity to do 75-25 instead of 50-50.
Okay, Councillor Goyder.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we should ask the question. You don't ask, you don't receive. But having said that, I do, as Councillor Bulmer said, this is a busy railway and this is a terrible crossing. It does need some work. So yeah. What choice do we have, really?
Mr. CAO, do we need a motion for this letter of request?
I don't think we need a specific motion. We can just capture it in Mary's notes, and we'll take that as direction to staff through that way.
Okay, Councillor Sapoulis, there was two components. There's the request of the City of Guelph, and then whether this applies to the Transportation Act. You wanted some staff to look into whether that.
I would just like staff to confirm that. My previous dealings with them, I thought it was always federal regulated, federally owned railways. So I don't know if it applies to municipally owned railways.
Okay.
I know, and just to add a point of interest, I know experience I had with another railway that was owned, the Goderich Exeter Railway, the same regulations did apply, and those costs were passed to the municipality. But we can check in this case as well.
Okay. Mr. San, if you want to give us a summary of what you've captured, please.
Yeah, so council directed staff to provide correspondence to Guelph Junction Railway to determine whether the township's contribution can be reduced to 25% of the total cost of the project related to Hume Road Railway crossing to $40,000. And council directed staff to confirm that the Transport Canada agency regulations apply to local municipalities.
I'm gonna put a friendly amendment to that letter. I think we should be sending it to the City of Guelph since they're the owner, and they would be setting the budget for that operation. If you send it to the Guelph Junction Railway, he's already indicated to Mr. Fowler that there's going to be no deviating from the funding schedule. So, Mr. Councillor Spoulis, comments on that?
I agree with you. The other comment I wish to make from the financial officer is that the CTC applies. I'm wondering if the cost sharing aspect applies.
Okay, so council directed staff, yeah, I can update the amendment based on what you've just indicated, Councillor Sapoulis. So council directed staff to provide correspondence to the city of Guelph. So I've changed it to the city of Guelph rather than Guelph Junction Railway. And council directed staff to confirm that the Transport Canada agency regulations related to cost sharing of capital railway projects apply to municipalities.
Correct.
So municipalities are municipally owned railways.
You're correct, Mr. Mayor. If it applies to municipally owned railways.
Okay, I've made those 2 amendments.
Okay. So that's captured. Any other further comments before we move on? All right. Transportation Master Plan, Mr. Fowler.
Okay, so basically this will entail basically coming up with a consensus as far as determining the community safety zones, speed zones, no truck routes, items that have come up to council's attention in the past where we are able to provide a consistent and straightforward answer to these type of issues. I'm sorry, I don't have my sheet in front of me. I don't have that one. So
That's fine.
I will also ask.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. So basically, I'll also ask the CAO to provide some input, and I'll answer any questions that I can.
Sure. The intent, like we mentioned before, is that this will utilize the inputs of the PCIs and the traffic counts to help come out with the overall plan for transportation plan for the community. It'll help with the asset management planning, help with operations of our road network, and also help with addressing concerns that come up.
Councilor Skouras.
I'm glad to see this study in here, and I support it 100%.
Thank you. Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, no questions. Look forward to going through this process.
Okay. Councilor Bowmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify then, I read something and I can't remember if it was this study or a different one where it would also consider, have a look at the gravel roads and what basic improvements would be needed, such as drainage and things like that. Is that part of this study as well?
Sorry, I can just speak to the asset management component associated with it. So when we did our pavement condition index study in 2016, it only included paved roads. So one of the recommendations that came out of the asset management plan was that our condition index study include both hard surface roads and gravel roads, and that it be done every 5 years. And you're correct, Councillor Bulmer, that it would include things like the drainage or the granular thickness and the adequacy of the underlying soil and those types of aspects.
So that's to be included in this transportation master plan. Is that right?
Well, it's actually one of the components associated with the pavement condition index study that we applied for grant funding through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. But yes, it's a component to the transportation master plan as well.
Yeah, the component or the pavement, the PCI is part of this. So it will capture, this study will capture also where gravel roads need enhancements to maintain, to be good or to
Correct.
be proper. Okay.
That's correct.
So then, if that's the case, if that happens through this process, does that mean that we might start to see gravel roads and those projects appear on the asset management plan? Because right now, I think all I see on our capital budgets is for sealed roads. But if this identifies under the PCI study a road that needs significantly being rebuilt or improved drainage, will that show up on the asset management plan then?
It could very well, yes. The when you go through and you look at your road network, obviously a lot of the emphasis is on hard surfacing or resurfacing roads, but at some point it may be determined that for the long term, it is appropriate for a certain road to remain as gravel, just based on traffic volumes or something, but it may need some structural enhancements in terms of the base or something like that. So yes, it could very well be that a certain block or section of road might need to be rebuilt, but it would still remain as a gravel road.
And by moving it out of the asset management plan, that would ensure that it got that proper attention in terms of maintaining its quality, as opposed to being left to just get periodic maintenance gravel. No offense to Mr. Fowler in his application of maintenance gravel, just that sometimes applying maintenance gravel isn't all that a road needs. So putting it on the asset management plan might ensure that it's maintained to a higher level down the road too then.
Absolutely. It would address the issue if it needs, for example, some base enhancements or improved drainage, so that regular maintenance would then be sufficient.
Okay, super. Thank you. That was a big help.
Mr. Goida?
Yeah, just to clarify, and I think this is sort of building on what Councillor Balmer has already asked, but if this is taking into consideration the condition of the gravel roads and the pavement condition index study, is it fair to say that this then would tie into the gravel road study that we've already completed, where we are contributing funds into a reserve to help us determine what roads would be appropriate for resurfacing or hard surfacing, and what roads would be appropriate for improving and keeping it as a gravel road, so that we can prioritize what those are and properly allocate the funds that we are now putting into a reserve for gravel roads improvement. Sorry if that, I hope that makes sense what I'm asking.
It does, yes. It will combine the information from the gravel road study as well. We're going to put all our roads into one plan, and so that they can all be addressed and planned and budgeted for appropriately.
Okay, great, thank you.
Also, will this plan help identify and develop policies for our traffic mitigation efforts? That's the intent. Remember our
Yes.
delegation from the Arco area, Boreham, I guess it is. And we have other areas, so that just making sure that that's incorporated as well.
That's correct. Yes, it will.
Okay. So Ms. Hassan, I think it was all just for clarification. Was there any additions?
No changes. I think everything that's been indicated was included in the capital budget sheet, so.
Okay, Councillor Spoulos?
Yes, like Councillor Goida reminded us, the gravel study we had, gravel road study, I don't recall seeing the results of that yet. Is that supposed to be forthcoming this year?
They might
I don't
to get
have
back to you.
information on that. Maybe Mary or Mike?
I think from my knowledge is GM Blue Plan was under the assumption that the presentation they made with recommendations that were given to council, they were finished with the gravel road study, but I can double check with them.
Because my recollection was we were going to prioritize the roads based on criteria they would establish, such as the number of people living on the roads, the close proximity of the homes to the roads, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
We'll
I
have to
remember
report
that
back.
too.
Yeah, we'll have to report back. Staff can make a note of that and report back to us.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair, won't this encompass that all of that as well? This is sort of building on whatever work they've done. If they haven't completed it, it'll then be incorporated into this study.
Mr. CAO, you can ensure that
Yep.
portion of the gravel road study is incorporated in the transportation master plan.
Absolutely. That's a critical component of the whole transportation, both the paved and the gravel roads. So yeah, we will make sure that that's all combined into the one document.
Okay, Ms. Hassan, did you capture that?
Yes, so council directed staff to ensure that the reporting, the results in the gravel road study are compiled into the transportation master plan.
You comfortable with that, Councillor Spoulos?
Including the prioritization of repaving gravel roads. Including the assessment of the prioritization of repaving of gravel roads.
Council directed staff to ensure that the results of the gravel roads study, including the assessment of the prioritization of repaving of gravel roads, are incorporated in the transportation master plan.
Thank you.
Everybody's comfortable with that? Looks like it. Okay, that's the last presentation from Mr. Fowler. The next thing on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken, that's correct, right? I believe the next one is the 6.1.9 capital plan summaries for 2022 to 2030. I don't know if we need to go by this, go through this line by line. Council, are we comfortable? Does anybody have questions or comments on capital plan from 2022 to 2030 at this time?
I have one.
Okay, I'll go in order. Councilor Schools.
Yeah, I have two. First of all, these years do not include allowances for contributions to the gravel, what we call it, repaving or refixing of gravel roads. Like we had indicated last year, we contributed 114. I know at the beginning of this meeting, the mayor wanted a discussion on for 2021, but I think these subsequent years should include these dollars. And the other comment I had was on page 21, there's a tree program in place, and I don't know what that's all about.
So I can quickly give some information about the tree program.
Sure.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Hassan.
Okay, so the asset management plan recommended a listing of the various trees in the township. We currently do not have a listing of the trees and their conditions. It would basically be a listing of all the trees located in the township in order to document their condition or required maintenance. So this includes roadside trees as well. And so that's where this comes about.
Thank you.
We'll discuss the surface paving program at the end of going through these, other than 2022 going forward. So I believe Ms. Hassan will document that Mr. Schools requested that be included, but it might get adjusted as we discuss it near the end. Where are we? Councilor Bailey. Anything on 2022 to 2030 capital plan summaries?
Yeah, sorry, I did it by page number, but the horse paddock bleachers, wasn't there talk about decreasing the cost by just adding a back railing or just bringing it up to standard? And has that cost been reflected in this?
Mr. Fowler?
We haven't currently assessed those bleachers as far as retrofitting them. I did have Gerald out to look at them to see if there's anything we could grandfather, and it was also recommended that instead of trying to grandfather or we'll say Frankenstein these bleachers to be up to today's safety standards, that they be considered for replacement so they can be built to today's standards.
Councilor Bailey, follow up?
Yep, that's fine. I'm just not clear what order we're going in here. Can I jump
Sure.
ahead?
Well, I was just dealing with, and I've probably just made it clear as mud, but I was just dealing with 6.19. I tried to do it all encompassing of that, but I was trying to speed things up, but it's not probably working. Let me just get my bearings.
Oh, yeah.
here.
Okay.
We'll go back.
Like page 68 is, I think, still within what you're talking about. Or wait a minute,
Hang on a
that's
second.
2023.
I can do it page by page. Just give me a second. I got to get my second screen set up here. Gonna make it a little bit more. All right, hold on a second. So what we'll do, we'll just rewind a little bit. So I'll start on page 65, which is 2022 capital plan summary. And we can go by department, and I'll try to keep an eye on both screens. So 2022 capital plan summary. Was there any questions or concerns with Pusson's Fire and Rescue? Just speak up if you do.
No.
Because I'm looking at my other computer. And then we have general government, same thing. Any questions or
Mayor,
comments?
may I suggest we just go page by page to make it faster? Just say any questions on page 65 and so on.
Or by year?
Well, that's what I was trying to do. 2022. I'm just gonna, bear with me here. I don't know. I'm just gonna do it quickly. You're just gonna have to bear with me because if I click pages, then it might be the page in the report or the page in the agenda. I'll get confused. So 2022, general governments, parks and recreation, public works, any concerns? So yes, by the year. Any concerns? Yep, nope. Now we're in 2023. So yes, I guess I am going by the year. Any for fire and rescue, general government, parks and rec, public works, anything for 2023?
So this is where my question was for Mike.
Okay, go ahead.
Page 68. So it talks about Leslie Road pave, and I'm seeing 3 separate lines. But when I'm thinking about the road, I'm only thinking of 2. I'm just not sure why Leslie Road paving is on there 3 times, I guess. I see bridge to the curve, I see curve to the Flamborough town line, and then I see town line to the limit.
Okay, so my assumption would be if there's 3.
You're breaking up, Mike. Michael, are you there? We lost you.
No.
Michael, you mean, oh, there you go. Try again?
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
We lost you. Are you in the shop?
No, I'm in the office.
There we go. You're back a bit.
To answer your Councillor Bailey's question, I would assume that if it's broken into 3 sections, then Leslie Road has been identified in the asset management plan as 3 different asset numbers.
I thought it had the same number.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Fowler. So there's asset number 22, 23, and
Yeah.
25.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. So that was page 68. Any further for 2023 capital? 2024 for capital projects.
I have a question on 2024.
Councillor Bowler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's similar to Councillor Bailey's. It has to do with Watson Road is listed twice, but it's the same asset number. It's the same because 139 and 140, and it talks about from Arkle Road to Maltby Road. It lists 2 different amounts, but it seems to be the same asset. So I just wondered if you could clarify, is one meant to be culverts or is it one from to Hume Road? I couldn't figure out what the difference was there.
I had the same question.
A good question. I'll look into that a little bit more in the budget model right now.
It doesn't need to be today, but because it's certainly not happening tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But just oddity I noted.
Okay. Any further questions for 2024?
Yeah, the
Councillor Bailey?
Madar Road work, is this, I'm just curious how this is fitting into the bypass, whether it should be deferred or bumped up, or if the bypass is affecting any of that plan.
Well, once we get closer to 2024, if the bypass is on the horizon, I guess we could make that decision. Is that a safe assumption, Ms. Hassan and Mr. Fowler?
Yes, I agree.
For some reason, I think that, did Hamilton not just tar and chip that, or did they only do the gore, Mr. Fowler?
They recently did the gore that separates Puslinch and Hamilton. 3 years ago now. As far as Madah Road goes, I have a feeling it was paved just before my time of start here, so I'll have to look into that, but I'm not aware of any, I'm not sure of the cost sharing agreement that was done with Hamilton at the time regarding that town line road.
Okay. Any follow-up, Councillor Bailey?
No, that's okay.
Anything further in 2024 capital?
No.
Okay.
So all I've noted as council direction for 2024 is that we just look into the Watson Road South project as it's noted twice. Was there any other direction that came out of that?
Don't believe so. Nope.
No.
Okay. 2025 capital project list. Any comments? Again, just speak up because I'm looking at the spreadsheets.
Okay, I'm on page 74.
Okay.
Old Brock Road. Just wondering if, I know there's been a little bit of conversation about changing that to one way. Will that impact this surface work? Could it? Should it?
Well, that's not Brock Road. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike Fowler.
Regarding Old Brock Road, it wouldn't affect necessarily any of the preparation or surface treating of that road. The only implication at that time is would reflect on the pavement marking. So when that time comes, if that's the direction council would like to proceed, then that would be the time for discussion as far as one way or to answer your question.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for 2025? 2026 capital budget.
No.
No. 2027. These are pretty far out, so we always have an opportunity to revisit them. 2028. Is there any comments for 2029 or 2030? Okay, so that should take us to the end of those. Hold on a second here. Okay, hang on. 2030. We need to review the projects by year.
I don't believe so, Mayor Sealy, as it's just a different, it's a pivot table which summarizes the other information that we just reviewed, so.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. All right, so I believe that's it, other than we need to visit the initial report at the top. Is that correct? Let me get my
Yes.
bookmarks back
Some
up.
council resolutions in there that we need some direction on.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I have one more question.
Sure, shoot.
More for Mike. Nowhere in the equipment replacement schedule do I see a sidewalk plow. Is that because we don't need to replace it until after 2040?
Sorry, she faded out there, Mr. Mayor. Could you ask her to repeat that?
She asked about, she didn't see a replacement for a sidewalk plow, and she was wondering why that was essentially. If we have one, if we're replacing it, what we're doing.
Currently, the township leases a unit every year for it's approximately 6 months for our minimum maintenance standards for winter control. The approximate cost is around $20,000 a year. This is allocated to the winter maintenance operating account. In the near future, it will be explored and brought to council's attention on the opportunity to purchase one for ourselves due to the high leasing rate every year.
Did that help, Ms. Bailey?
Yeah, I just wondered then why we aren't talking about it sooner than later if it's a high rental rate.
Well, one consideration was I just asked for 2 new plow units for roads, so I didn't want to push my luck.
Okay, fair enough.
And also, Mr. Fowler, you were still trying to determine if the trackless type piece of equipment was what you wanted as a unit, or if you're going to explore other options. So you're still kind of figuring out our needs, is what I thought.
Yes, that's correct. It is still, we'll say, a trial and error period where the township's only engaged in clearing sidewalks since the beginning of last winter season. So we are monitoring and judging how the performance of this machine currently suits our needs, and that will definitely be a factor in determining if we move forward with the attempt to purchase one of our own.
Any further questions before so we're going to go back up to page 3. I believe our Director of Finance has the direction for the rest of the agenda. And we'll deal with these 3 items. We're going to do it backwards because they're going to be easier. That the previous amounts budgeted in 2018-2019 related to the new flooring in the municipal office no longer be funded, till such time space needs analysis is completed for municipal office. Comments on that are Councillor Spillis.
I support that.
Okay, Councillor Bailey. Oh, you got your mute on, and when you're ready to talk,
Okay.
turn your video off, please.
Sorry, the plan is to just
Just look at-
carry it forward?
No, so
Go.
Ms. Hassan, we could maybe, I'll ask this question to Ms. Hassan. When you're saying no longer funded, what does that mean? It means it's not carried forward, or, you might have to simplify that for council.
Yes, so basically right now in our capital budget, we have a project in 2018 and a project in 2019 that are not yet complete at this time, and it relates to the new flooring in the municipal office. It wasn't ever raised through tax levy. It was just funded through our asset management discretionary reserve and our building surplus reserve. So what I'm recommending is that basically this project be closed and until we complete our space needs analysis. Basically that it not be a capital carry forward project anymore.
Okay. So it's just getting put back into the pot.
That
Exactly.
Yep, go for it.
that it was never taken out of. Councillor Palmer.
Makes sense.
Okay, Councillor Goida.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too. I just want to confirm that the whatever recommendations come out of the space needs analysis would be eligible to be funded from the asset management discretionary reserve.
Councillor Guida, it is a current asset that needs to be updated and renovated.
Okay.
So yes, I would say that it would be eligible through that reserve.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so you have your direction on that one. That the previous amounts budgeted in 2018 for a municipal class environmental assessment, municipal water and wastewater of 87,000 B. I figured just put it in the asset management plan because if you need it out again, it's there. Councillor Spillis.
It's water under the bridge, so to speak. So what I like to suggest is that we use it to offset the gravel roads improvement discretionary fund. In other words, it goes into that as opposed to this. My bottom line for this year's budget, I'd like to try to keep it as close to zero as possible. But that involves giving this up, not putting it into the asset management plan, but allocating to the gravel roads improvement reserve. I'd rather do that.
Okay, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I like that thinking as well. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Balmer.
Oh, I guess I'd look at it 2 different ways. I see this as two questions, I guess, or 2 options. One, I certainly support taking it out of having money aside for putting money aside for an EA for a project that, as Councillor Goida figured out or pointed out, we can't afford to do anyway. So I think we could remove the whole project from, putting money aside for in the future for an EA. But I'm somewhat concerned about the suggestion to take that 87 and put it towards the gravel roads study, because or plan or improve, since, you know, that really, from what I understood today, we're doing a roads master plan, which will end up having these gravel roads that need improvement being placed in the asset management plan. So it's starting to look like the best place to put this money would be the asset management plan. If we want to put it towards gravel roads, that's where this money should be. If gravel roads are going to be identified in the asset management plan for improvement, that's where the money to improve them should be. So I don't know if I'd put them in a separate reserve from the asset management program.
Councilor Lewis, Councilor Goida.
I can see it from both perspectives. However, I think to Councillor Balmer's point, if that's the case that we're going to now fund all these projects from the asset management plan, then we might as well just consolidate the asset management plan and the paved roads reserve together anyway. So I think if I'm not mistaken, what Councillor Sapoulis is saying, that we should put it towards the gravel roads, which may in turn at the end of the day come out of asset management, but at least then we're putting it at least as a placeholder for right now for the gravel roads, which would maybe then make the additional contribution we have to make to that discretionary reserve less, which would therefore keep the tax levy down. So I think for right now, at least as a placeholder, I would be in support of Councillor Sapoulis and putting it towards the gravel road, whatever we're calling that reserve.
Okay, so we're gonna have to talk about the funding for the gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve, which is our paving gravel roads program. So in order to build a program to pave roads, in my opinion, you can't just do one-off contributions because it's a program that rolls over. So the initial direction